Damian Martinez cuts it back. Touchdown number 3.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Wigman again to the air. One-hand grab, Evan Stewart! Freshman to freshman and a 15-yard strike.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
On return by Caleb Downs, and he finds a seam. He makes the punter look silly. Caleb Downs, show him what you got.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Judkins up the middle, no one home for Auburn. House call, touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time it's going to be Leonard on the ground. Leonard showing some moves and some speed. A foot race to the 10, to the touchdown. 56 yards. Beautiful run by Riley Leonard.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Gabriel. Fuentes touchdown. Nick Anderson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports. UCF football coach Gus Malzahn will join us here momentarily. After the first year within the Big 12, they've had a really good offseason. We'll have Gus Malzahn on. Also today, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Eric Moriss, head football coach at North Texas. Mike Craven from Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine on some college information in the state of Texas and more. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. If you took just a bunch of different people who cover the Big 12, whatever they cover, an individual school, let's say it's Iowa State or whoever, how many of, let's say, 30 to 50 writers or columnists or whoever, how many of them do you think will have someone other than Utah as their favorite to win the Big 12, at least at this particular time?
A few. I mean, I don't have Utah as my favorite. I'm picking Kansas State personally, or Kansas. I'm sorry, Kansas right now. So I'm banking big on Jalen Daniels' health. So I think Utah will be in the mix. But yeah, I'm not picking them right now. I got to see Cam Rising play.
Okay, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable to see Cam Rising play. I think it's, if he wasn't available by the start of this season, then he probably needs to retire from football because, man, you're talking about one long recovery. But, yeah, I think I have not yet made my determination because it's May 9th. So I haven't even decided on what ballot I'm going to put out there in a couple of months when we actually do that. But I would say, out of 10, probably 7 or 8 have Utah as the favorite, I would think. 7 is what I would settle in on. I think they're just the obvious choice, even though I think a lot of that has been just national guys of late I've seen coming across talking about Utah. And so I know there's been a lot of, discussion around them. But, yeah, Kansas State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. There's a variety of other teams that could be the choice that I wouldn't blame somebody for picking. So, yeah, I think they're probably the favorite, but I don't think it's overwhelming necessarily.
Garrett? Would you have Utah or would you have K-State, KU? Who would you have? Oklahoma State, who?
I mean, I think right now it would either be between Utah, Kansas State, or UCF. I think UCF's poised to have a breakout season, honestly. If they got the depth, because they've done a good job through the portal establishing, I think Gus and them are poised for a breakout season.
All right. I would say that I think I would go with Kansas State slightly ahead of a Utah or KU at the very top, at least for now. We're going to get a little bit later on to Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, and his top 25. As again, some of those do pop up today. And also over the next several weeks, there's just going to be a dime a dozen. So Alton McCaskill, former Houston running back, went to Colorado. He's made a decision. It's Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham picking up the running back who was at Houston, had a really good start to his career, went to Colorado, didn't get much time, transferred. He ends up in Tempe, Arizona.
I think he's lined up with a fantastic coach in Kenny Dillingham, and one that needs a playmaker at running back. And if they were looking for a place where he was going to be running back one, no question, that's certainly a place that you would seem fits the bill. Arizona State, of all the teams in the Big 12, probably comes in with the most questions because the one we thought they had answered was Jaden Rashada. Well, he's at Georgia now. And so Sam Leavitt, likely the quarterback there for the long haul at Arizona State for the 2024 season. And then they've got to fill in some other things. I mean, they lost a receiver, Elijah Badger, who's to the transfer portal, who's highly thought of, but they've had some guys come in. So we'll see what happens there at ASU and what Kenny Dillingham year 2 at ASU and year 1 of the Big 12 looks like.
I'll have to disagree with you, Paul, on one major thing that you just said there. I don't think he's guaranteed the number 1 running back spot. They got Cameron Scatabo, who is their number 1 running back, and that's going to be their number 1 running back. But I do love the pickup for Arizona State. I think that the fact that he doesn't have to come in and be the man, but that he's got the skills to be the man. He's a guy who can play off of not only Scatabo, but their other running backs. They have a deep room now, and I think that's going to make for an excellent combination because if McCaskill's not, still able to be the guy he was a couple years ago at Houston for whatever reason that might be, then it's not all on his shoulders. But if he can be, then holy cow, with him and Scatabo and the others in that room, Kenny Dillingham's really got some pop back there. So I don't think they necessarily needed him, but it's a luxury to have him, especially if he can be what he was at Houston prior to the injury. I know that If is carrying a lot of weight there, but he's had a long time now to get right. Colorado, I thought he was going to be able to make more of a splash there, and it didn't work out for any number of reasons. But I think this is an excellent pickup for the Sun Devils. I think it's an excellent decision by Alton McCaskill. I don't know what his other options were exactly, but I'm glad that he's going to be in the Big 12. If you listen a couple years back, I hated when he left Houston because I loved what he was doing there. And it was early on in the portal, and it was just kind of like, why is he going to Colorado? He just rehabbed, and he goes to Colorado after going through an entire spring, and it just felt kind of weird. And then last year does nothing really for the Buffaloes. So hopefully he can get his groove back is what I'm getting at and be that guy we saw a couple years ago. And if so, man, that's a dynamic running back room. And Scatabo, for those who don't know, is going to be one of the more fun players to watch in the entire conference this year. So, remember that name if you weren't paying attention last year to Arizona State. I think that's a really good get.
And a hidden Hawaiian. He should have stayed at Houston, but obviously had the lure of Colorado. They had Dylan Edwards. McCaskill didn't get much play. And then, of course, now Ohio State's running back Hayden now is in Boulder.
Running backs in general didn't get much play in Boulder. Right. I mean, Dylan Edwards got some, but we talk about him. I hear it mentioned like he was a 1,000-yard back or something, and that was not the case at all. So Shedeur was that offense. Shedeur throwing it around was 90% of that offense. But, he should have probably stayed at Houston, hindsight being 2020, but then again, that was Holgorsen. That was a lifetime ago at this point, but yeah, he would have been great with the Cougs.
We are now joined by UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, who we've been fortunate to have on the show many times, Big 12 Media Days, including a couple of other times on this show on 365 Sports. Coach, thank you very much for your time. How much has the combination of a year now inside the Big 12 plus what we have with the new 12-team college football playoff coming up, how much is that also just giving you and your program even more of a lift? Gus Malzahn, the UCF head football coach. Paul, we need to call him on a cell instead?
Yeah.
Okay. Gus, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Garrett, is there a flip?
All right.
Okay.
We're going to call you right back, Coach. Thank you very much. Sorry about the inconvenience there with Gus Malzahn. It was great to have him on Zoom, and now we'll have to call him up on the phone. So we will have also today at 4:30, Eric Moriss, the head coach at the University of North Texas. He will join us here on 365 Sports. And tomorrow, next week, by the way, Sonny Dykes is locked in to be a part of the show on Tuesday also of next week. Paul Catalina working on Gus Malzahn. We'll get him on as soon as we possibly can. Can't wait to hear about that running back room now with Penny Boone joining what was already a stud in R.J. Harvey and how they worked that out too. Here on 365 Sports. All right, here we go. We got Coach Malzahn locking it in with us. Appreciate the time and the patience. Got it? All right, here we go. All right, UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn now with us on 365 Sports. Coach, I'm sorry about that. If you don't mind, that first question about being a part of the Big 12 for a full year and the larger playoff model, how much has that given your program even more of a spark?
Yeah, it was really good for us to go through. Anytime you get a new conference, it's going to be a learning experience. Really quality teams. You got to play well to win. So it was good. The unique thing this year is we only played 2 teams that were on our schedule last year in conference. So it's almost like we're starting over. With the new 4 teams from out west, we play them all. So, but it was a good experience, and we're looking forward to this year.
Coach, you have done some yeoman's work in the transfer portal this offseason. You brought in a new quarterback in KJ Jefferson, who, no offense to Senator Plumlee, who we just talked to at Big 12 Pro Days, and that's what I will call him for the rest of his life. But KJ's a bigger model than John is. What has been your kind of assessment, and how has he kind of taken to this offense? It seems really tailored to him anyway, before you even have to find out what his special skill sets are.
Yeah, KJ's the guy that I recruited in high school, same year as recruited Bo Nix. And so we got a chance to get to know each other. His skill set really fits what we like to do. He's a big guy. He's got a great arm. He's thrown for almost 8,000 yards. He throws a great deep ball, and then, he can run too. So he's an experienced guy, and so when he went in the portal, we circled him, and we were glad to get him.
Coach, what was on the to-do list? Obviously, besides personnel gains, like a KJ Jefferson, among others, but when you kind of summarized the season, got together with your coaching staff and said, hey, here's what we got to go and get done as a football program, what were the top 2 or 3 things on that list?
Yeah, I think more than anything was probably depth, quality depth. We had to get more depth at linebacker. And so we hit the portal right after the season. I think the best thing we did was hold on to our top guys. We really didn't lose very many guys, and we held on to our top ones. And then, we went in the portal and addressed those needs. We got some experienced linebackers. I think that was great. And we added to, different positions, guys that could come in with experience that have been successful other places.
Gus Malzahn with us on 365 Sports. Building the roster, you mentioned that depth. Was that, and I think you mentioned that to us last year, is that one of the things that you weren't quite there yet because of the transition from where you were, even though a program that was good, into a conference like the Big 12?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Like I said, anytime you go in a new conference, there's a learning curve, and we were really trying to build quality depth, but obviously there's nothing like going through it and seeing what reality is. And so it was good for us to get that foundation of that first year of what we needed to do as a program to be able to compete for a championship in that league. And really, that's really what was on our mind. It's a really good conference. Like I said, the parity part, every week you're playing a good team. There's no off weeks. And so that was really our mindset once we got through with the season as far as addressing our needs.
How much more is it? I know it's probably not as much of a relief as I may be making it sound like, but when you would have been transferring into a new conference, say 5 years ago, you would have still had, to create some sort of a buffer zone to create the depth. Now you can kind of shortcut it a little bit with the portal, or am I making too much of how valuable the portal is?
No, I think you're exactly right. I think, the needs you can address now in the portal age, it's a lot easier to address those than it once was. But like I said, I think a big key to program success is going to be keeping their top players and not losing them. And that way you can have continuity and everything that goes with that. And, we've had great success in the portal, but, I think it's even more important that we kept, most of our top guys.
Coach, how much do you still learn football in the offseason? I mean, you've been around a long time. You're one of those that when people talk about, great offensive minds, you're a name that comes up pretty quickly. How often are you still learning at this stage of your career, and how do you go about the learning when and if you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have our foundation that we're always going to, have, and we're not going to vary from that. But I think having wrinkles and trying to be cutting edge with new things, new approaches, I rely probably more on the guys that have been in my circle, that have either coached with me or, over the years and all that. But I think you got to stay on the cutting edge and have wrinkles each year to what you do best.
We had G.J. Kinney on this week, Coach, and he can't stop talking about what he learned with you, playing for you, being on your staff too. Your thoughts about when you saw him, and of course he had a dynamic high school and then had a really good career at Tulsa. You know that. What about him, and what do you see from him as far as his growth as a head coach?
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for G.J. He's a young guy, but he is very intelligent, and he has the unique ability to make really, really good decisions when the pressure's the highest. And he relates well to players. He did a great job for us the first year we were here. We had Dylan Gabriel coming back. We had him for 3 games, and I think we were number 1 team in the country statistically. He gets hurt last play of the game, and we had to throw a true freshman in there. And he ended up winning 7 games, and we had a big bowl win against Florida. And GJ deserves a lot of credit for his development and really just helping me as my right-hand person. But the sky's the limit. It doesn't surprise me at all that he had the success he had last year in top 10 offense.
What does it mean to you that, again, you've been in the business for a while now, that you have, you're coming to the Big 12 with Kenny Dillingham. You know him. You're going to be playing in Texas more, even though he's not in the conference. Rhett Lashley won't stop singing your praises either, and how much he learned from you. But there's just guys all over the place that now that you've coached with that are head coaches on their own.
Yeah, I tell you what, first of all, those guys are excellent human beings. They're in it for the right reasons. They're all very talented. I've been real blessed to have a lot of young guys, coach with me over the years. And, Eli Drinkowitz, Mike Norvell, all those guys. And I'm real proud of those guys and what they're doing. They're doing it the right way. And they're all really good coaches.
Coach, what's it like being a head coach in college football now versus, let's say, 10 years ago? I mean, how drastic of a difference are we talking? All the conversation that's out there these days about the various issues going on, but just how drastic of a difference from your point of view is your time spent and kind of what you focus on?
Yeah, it's probably more like 3 years. I mean,
True.
There's been more changes in college football the last 2 years than any time I've been in it by a long shot. You've got to be more of the roster management is so important. It's a little bit of a GM. The role of a head coach in college football is really changed. And what I love to do is I love coaching players on the field. So, once you spring practice, fall camp, that's the funnest part for me. But the new reality is one of the big jobs is putting together a competitive roster each year and keeping the integrity of your program and what you believe and your core beliefs and not vary from them. And that's the challenge, I think, for all coaches this day and time.
How much more difficult has that made spring ball, if at all? I was just thinking there wasn't as much attention, it seemed like, paid to it just across the national landscape as there normally kind of has been. And I know that's sort of probably always been something blown out of proportion because it just feeds the beast of the offseason. But it does feel like now it's sort of an afterthought because you don't know if the guys you're coaching are going to be in the portal a week from now. So how did you, as a program, go into spring ball kind of knowing that, and what was your approach?
Yeah, and that was different, that you knew the portal was opening up after spring ball, and, hey, we're going to have the same roster. I think every coach in America kind of went through that. We just chose to be completely honest and upfront. I mean, we're going to hold true to developing and grinding and pushing and coaching and competing and everything that went, but definitely, in the back of coaches' minds, you may have a new roster. Like I said, I think quite a few times I've said, but we were fortunate enough to keep, our top guys, which I think is very important.
When you watch a game on television, and let's say you have an off week or whatever, whenever you're watching football, do you ever watch it as a fan? Really, if you get done with your game, sometimes, especially if you play an early game, you can get home and try to enjoy maybe another conference or out-of-conference game. If you're watching an in-conference game, you're thinking about who your opponents, how you're going to play, and all that. Probably when I get the most relaxed is when if I ever get a chance to watch one of my former players play in the NFL, and that's when you can really let your guard down and try to enjoy it. The appeal was there for you to go to UCF. Obviously, you've been there. I think you're entering year 4. Is that same appeal that you saw the same appeal that high school prospects, transfers, or others are seeing too?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this place is a gold mine. It really is. Our best days are ahead of us, and I don't think it's going to be very long at all. Everything is set now that we're in the Big 12 Power 5 conference. We're right in the middle of the state. We're in Orlando. There's no NFL team. The best brands in the world are here. You think about the NIL, the branding, everything that goes with the new age of college football. It's set up. So I'm real excited and looking forward to the future.
Well, I guess the checklist, outside of the NIL and the brands, like when you go to a place, the facility is good, or they have alumni base, like all you had to do is walk around campus on a game day, and that would have sold me pretty quick if I were you, because it's an atmosphere I think a lot of people don't know about because you guys haven't been in the top in the Power 5. But Coach, I was there last year for the Baylor game, and man, it is hopping on Saturdays around your stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. We're a young school. I think we're the youngest Power 5 school, and average age of our alumni is 36. We graduate 19 or 20,000 every single year. We're one of the fastest, growing fan bases too. So very unique and very exciting.
Gus, Norvell, Dillingham, Kenny, you mentioned that. Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Jake Spavital, who was at Cal last year, was at Texas State. Jake. He's now a part of Dave Aranda's staff. What about what he brings to the table? And of course, that open offense that he's going to run this year?
Well, he's really good, too. He's got his own version, but he's really good. When he has a real quarterback, good things happen. That's what his history shows. And he's real creative. So yeah, he's gonna do a really good job for him, I think.
You had him when he was just a quality control coach, right?
Yeah, he was a GA. I think he was a GA. Norvell, I think, was there the same time he was there the last year I was at Tulsa. So
hell of a coaching tree.
That was two pretty good young guys helping him.
No question.
Back in the day.
If you don't mind, when you watch film, and there's been so many incredible coaches, offense, defense, whatever, different styles, different schemes. How is it that there always is something new and a wrinkle? Do you ever wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and write something down on a notepad or whatever that comes to mind? Because that's what's great. It's just like science or anything else. It always is changing.
Yeah, I think there is some of that from time to time. Probably not much as it used to be, but still from time to time you may have an idea. That kind of fits within what's going on. And, I think being a former high school coach has really helped me in this high school world also. And, all those guys you're talking about, I mean, I think last year, it was 4 of the top 10 offenses in college football was from our tree. And so we'll share ideas from time to time. Sometimes that, I'll turn on the film of Chip Lindsey, who's at North Carolina last year, that's been with me, and kind of see what they're doing. Rhett, same way, Eli. And so a lot of times, you just kind of share ideas and look off what each other's doing, successfully.
You already had R.J. Harvey. You've added Penny Boone. How much of a treasure chest, along with what you also have at the depth chart at that position, do you have this year?
Yeah, we're real excited about that room. We've got some really, really talented guys that I think are NFL guys, along with KJ Jefferson. You're talking about some big guys that have been successful. So we're very excited about that. And, we'll have a chance. And, we believe in running the football, playing fast and throwing it deep. And so it fits really to what we're looking for.
I know you have to worry about your roster management, and I'll wrap it up with this. But at the same time, you've mentioned college football. Paul asked the question, has changed so dramatically, or Craig did, in 3 years. How much of that is on your plate every day that occupies your time about the future? You just got the opportunity to be a part of a Power 5, and there's always these things out there, speculation, super conferences or whatever. How much of that is on your mind?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's on my mind a lot. And you have to adapt. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, to be successful this day and time, you have to be able to adapt because they're changing rules left and right. Just think about last year at this time. We have four new conference members from the West Coast that we didn't know about. So I think you just got to have an open mind. There's a lot of stress that goes when the portal window opens up till the time it closes. A lot of strategy that goes in that. So yeah, it's on your mind a lot. And like I said, I think the big thing for me is I love when we get to spring ball, and I love when we get to fall camp, and you can get out there and be a coach and do what you love to do.
Thank you for your time, Coach. I know you have a lot on your plate. Gus Malzahn, head coach at UCF, with us to open up the show here on this Thursday. Gus Malzahn and UCF with us on 365 Sports. And appreciate Justin Wilson, media relations at UCF, for setting that up for us.
Yeah, we've been able to talk to him a few times over the last couple of years. Always enjoy the conversation, and they've been very active in the portal, and I think they're not tempering expectations. There's a feeling that they could be in the mix, even though they're not one of the first 2 or 3 teams that are mentioned, kind of like we started out the show discussing. They are a team that could sneak up and be pretty good, or not even sneak up if you already expect them to be pretty good because of KJ Jefferson and Penny Boone and all the other moves that they made. So you heard it there, trying to shore up that defense, and that was certainly problematic for them at times last year. So if that can improve, the offense is going to be there in some form or fashion, if not outright great. So I think that certainly they're a school you look at that could make a little bit of noise. And I mean, there's some moments I thought like whether to bring it up or not, and I didn't really know how it fit into the overall conversation. But, that Baylor game last year, that should have been a win. That should have absolutely have been a win, and they just melted down late in that game. And so otherwise you're looking at a different outcome just last year alone with the flip of that one game, and being a team that can say you went 7-6 as opposed to 6-7. And so you're that close to being above 500, should have been. And so how far away are you from 8 or 9 wins? We start talking about 8 or 9 wins, and you're really talking about something. So, and who knows in the Big 12? I mean, 9 wins might have you like in second place in the league for all we know. We don't know what it's going to look like just yet. But, yeah, I think that's definitely a team that you put some marks by and take note of moving into 2024.
I wish I would have asked him this question. Mark Daniels told me he's got a UCF broadcast, the voice of UCF Athletics. He was in Arkansas when McFadden and Jones, I think, were there. Mm-hmm. And so
legendary high school coach.
Would have been pretty interesting to ask what he may see, not trying to compare Harvey and Boone to them, but they're both really good. About are there any kind of comparisons at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a legend. Like, everybody in Arkansas loves Gus Malzahn.
Dude, I first started hearing about Mitch Mustaine. Like, that was some of the first recruiting stuff I ever heard about was the Springdale kids and that group that they had. And that's when I was really first ever starting to follow recruiting whatsoever in the early 2000s. And I remember that vividly of what a big deal that group was. Mustaine's the one that I always remember off the top because he was the quarterback. But, yeah, Gus was right there in that territory. So that's pretty, I mean, all due respect, though, that's a pretty heavy, that's a pretty damn good group. So if they can come close to having, comparable to having a McFadden Jones situation, then Big 12 certainly better watch out, because you throw KJ Jefferson in that mix, it's going to be hell on wheels to try and stop them.
Well, I mean, like they don't
4th and 1, man. Or even 3rd and 2, whatever. 1st and 10.
They don't have to throw the ball that much. I mean, they really don't. Like they.
Well, that was always the misconception with the Browse offenses, which are kind of living in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, I think those two kind of played off each other when you look back at when they were developing those offenses. It never gets the credit for the running game that it should. It always gets completely overlooked, the running game, every time. To your point, Paul, everybody thinks, it's just pass. It's like, no, that's not at all what it is.
No. Well, I mean, look, and part of it is just people don't look at, like, when you look at a box score and you see like the ridiculous offensive numbers that the offense can put up when it's really hot, and you see like, he threw for 375 yards, and they look at the total like, they had 585 total. Well, like, well, yeah, and like, but he only threw 19 passes. 2 of them happened to be 75 yards. So yeah, it's out of whack because the offense makes big plays, but then you look at, the other 80 plays they ran were all runs.
Yeah, they ran for 280 yards. That's kind of how it operated sometimes. I mean, you definitely got the big play and you could throw it around, but up-tempo doesn't mean passing constantly. I think most people are educated on that, but I still find sometimes there's just like this misconception of kind of what that is. And obviously, they're so very locked in on the running game with what they've done this offseason and what they had coming back. That is going to be a force for Big 12 defenses to try and stop.
It is so underrated what a lot of those open offenses, spread, air raid, whatever you want to call them, is that what they do is they make you spread so wide, and then they start pounding you in the gut, and they soften you. And then, now we got to stop the run, then they throw it over your head. If they have the right personnel and the speed and the quarterback, it's very simple,
and the offensive
but it's
line.
so hard to stop. It's easier said than done.
Right.
Yeah, and also the offensive line. Big boys. One of the things about those teams in the early 2010s was they had some grown-ass men that were on the offensive line, like Cyril Richardson and some of those guys that they had, and they would just beat up on you. They'd give you a wall for the quarterback, and then, we'll punch you in the gut. And it's still the most remarkable part about the TCU comeback 61-58 is they did that running the ball as much as anything with Shock Linwood. It was unbelievable to watch, actually. All right, thank you to the responses early on. Some UCF fans in the chat room today. Thanks again to Gus Malzahn for his time with us on 365 Sports. When we come back, a couple of other stories to get to, including Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports has his top 25. We'll kind of look at that, compare it as those start to pop in various networks and even whoever might be covering college football. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Boy, it's nice to know that I don't have to wake up and go, what's going to be a problem today? That was a case for me for years and years and years because I did the minimum, brushed my teeth, occasionally might floss. I'll admit this. I didn't have great dental hygiene work other than brushing my teeth. And then about a week or two before I was going to go see the dentist, I'd start flossing my teeth. Like that was going to make up for not doing it for 3 to 6 months. I don't have to do that anymore. I take care of it every day, every night. And if you don't, or you have issues with your dental work and you're in the Central Texas area, Dr. Steve Childress and Stonewood Dental and his group, his office, his building of other dentists and dental hygienists and, of course, all sorts of specialists, they have helped me so much, and I appreciate them. And I mean, I was a wreck when I had to do a lot of that. You don't take care of your dental work, and then you're scared to go to the dentist, when it should be the opposite. You need to go, especially if you're not taking care of it. Dr. Steve Childress, Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sam Conn, theathletic.com. In a little bit, about 4 o'clock, we'll have him. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. And a little after 5, Craig's Off the Radar. Prior to that and right after that, we'll have Paul's Top 5. So all pro sports are scripted in the chat room. Wanted to say a prayer to him. His wife, Kelly, passed away after a battle with breast cancer. He gave me your first name. We're thinking about you. We appreciate you. We are a family, even though when you go in the chat room, it's like, my God, at times. But I'm just saying, we are all a family. Retired stockbroker and many others with the flooding. We've had tornadoes all over the country with viewers we've tried to mention whenever possible. So thinking about you, all pro sports are scripted.
Yeah, I didn't know where that was going originally when you started saying all pro sports are scripted. I was like, what are we about to talk about? Well, NBA officiating is kind of sketchy, but no, that's very sad. I'm sorry to hear that. As you mentioned, we are a community of people who love college football and college sports. That's what we can all have in common. That's what we all do have in common. And there's people all over different parts of the country or different parts of the world on any given show with different opinions and different leanings one way or the other. But, yeah, we're all human beings and fans of college football, and that's what unites us. And so, yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that, and I hope that if we can at all play a little small role in just helping you get through the day and get through, the next few whatevers, we will be glad to do what we can. So, yeah, prayers with you and thoughts with you for sure.
And a lot of new, comments in the chat room for you. Thank you to everybody reaching out to him. Right around the corner from where we are, right next to McLean Stadium, about a mile, probably 2 miles where they are, is the Clyde Hart Stadium, hosting the Big 12 track and field meet. Big 12, 10 teams in the national rankings, Texas Tech and Texas both in the top 10 for men. And Texas Tech coming off that indoor championship, national championship. So there we are with that. That's going on right around the corner from us. Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors, both LSU teammates, they're betting $10,000 on who among the two, who will win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
That's good amount of money, but nothing too crazy. I think they're being smart with their rookie paychecks to little 10Ks. Like, that's a drop in the bucket now, I think, for both of those guys, considering where they were drafted. So, why not have a little bit of a friendly wager? It's not like betting's taboo anymore. I mean, my God, I get hit over the head when I walk out the front door. I got like a DraftKings person just slaps me over the head and tells me to bet on the playoffs. But, that's a very competitive duo, I'd imagine. That's, LSU as a team wasn't what you thought they probably should be given the talent that they had, particularly on offense. But, man, I bet those offensive practices and just competitions were insane because there's some dudes for the Tigers. And those are a couple of them.
I think ESPN actually reached out to the NFL to find out if this was okay to do.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure.
I hope they reached out because made sure it was okay to do. Because they're not.
Well, ESPN will just say, put it on our official sports book, and then it'll probably be okay, right? What are they going to say now?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of who I would put. I think Caleb Williams has a little bit of a better chance because I think he's going to put up. They're both going to put up numbers in the offenses they're in. Man, that's. That's a tough one.
There's some weapons. I mean, when you have the first 13 players drafted are offensively and a couple of offensive linemen, I guess you're going to have some guys that are going to, that are expected to put up big numbers.
Who's the Giants quarterback?
It's Daniel Jones.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels then.
I know.
I mean, that's the first thing that pops out is who's getting the ball to Malik Neighbors. But I looked at the odds, and I don't know how recent these are. This is from I don't have a date on it, but it's relatively recent. Yeah, Caleb Williams is the favorite. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 2. Jaden Daniels, 3. J.J. McCarthy at 4. See, that's one of those where you would go nah, I don't think so. But I guarantee there's plenty of Vikings fans.
Justin Jefferson.
Right. There's plenty of Vikings fans that are excited to be I think he is going to be the Rookie of the Year. I think he's the missing piece. And so he's at 4, Malik Neighbors at 5, and then it goes on to everybody else.
LSU, Jefferson, Chase, and now Neighbors, and there's who was the other?
Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas, among others. And of course, Odell Beckham, who's not on the end of his career, but another one of those.
There's way more guys to mention.
No, I know. They put out some
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase. I said that, yeah.
Odell Beckham's like the OG at this point. I mean, he's been out for a while.
All right.
Jarvis Landry.
Landry. Where's he now? He was at Miami for a while.
He just went to a rookie mini camp with somebody, doing a tryout. So I don't know. I mean, him walking into the rookie mini camp and telling kids, listen, homeowners insurance is an important thing. Right, you get that locked down.
So here's Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, and his top 25. Yesterday, remember, we put one up, and it was the top 30 from our good friend Brandon Marcello from 247 Sports. There was no Notre Dame on that one. They are 8 with Dennis Dodd's, pretty much the same logos you would expect, and there's maybe a few that change at the bottom, but there we are.
I disagree. I think Clemson is too high. I think Kansas State is too low. I think Miami's just about right. I think Washington might be a little too high. I think Texas A&M might be a little too high, or they might wind up being too low. Who knows? There's no expectations.
Well, I mean, one or the other right now.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? Yeah. But I think they might be a little too high.
I think he might be right and he might be wrong. But I don't know for sure.
I think the stability, and we don't know what Elko's going to dial up, but just the fact that there's really not much. The expectations are neutral. Might be good for them. Who knows?
It is good for them. We had the whole number 1 recruiting class and all the hoopla and all the Jimbo mess and everything like that. And A&M, I feel like they view themselves a certain way, but then the moment Johnny Fever broke loose, they started acting a different way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I think they're kind of getting back to their roots a little bit, which maybe means that you kind of just need to be maybe a little bit just modest about expectations and just kind of let it play out as opposed to going nuts about, being one of the top dogs. I think, now go walk the walk. You talk the talk, you walk the walk and then started talking the talk and then started talking real big talk. And then the talk overshadowed the actual walking, and I think it's time to get back to walking, if that makes sense for Texas A&M, and I think Mike Elko is the perfect guy to do that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that places can win. Like, they have to have the personality that fits them to win. Now, you can have different styles of doing it inside that personality, and the one I'll tell you is just the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to have to be a blue-collar football team. They've got to fit the attitude of the city, of the place. When the Pittsburgh Steelers get too fancy, they really suck.
That's a good point.
But when they are, when
meat and potatoes,
just
and
absolutely
hands are dirty,
gritty, and that's why Ben Roethlisberger was such a good fit for them, because he was just a big dumb galoot back there playing quarterback and running into people.
Was he Rob Gronkowski playing quarterback?
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, like that, kind of like that.
He won Super Bowls, baby.
But yeah, he won Super Bowls. Like, A&M is at their best when they are country strong, Texas school. Like, that's what they are. When that's who they are. When they're, the Johnny thing was different. Like, it was different because he and Mike Evans and the guys they had were kind of once in a while players that you get at a place like that. But to be consistent, you have to stay the same. And in other words, to shorten this up, when they're expected to be good, they usually aren't. Yes.
And when they're expected to be maybe off the radar, they're pretty good.
Yeah, most of the time. But, like, the most successful era is R.C. Slocum.
Yeah.
And R.C. Slocum was the model of consistency.
Yeah, he was.
And just this.
Yeah, Rob Gronkowski, Big 12 legend now. Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, that's right. No, they get to claim him.
Yeah.
So Missouri too high according to Paxton. JG, Arizona is too high.
Well,
Washington will suck this year. UT parking.
Did you have something, Garrett? Did you want to say?
I mean, what about SMU? Is that an ACC bump? Like, and they're above A&M? Like, talk about.
They're pretty good.
I know they're good, but
I think people still forget they're in the ACC. Honestly.
That's a good point.
I don't know that everybody's.
Here's what happened. I think is what you said. So Dennis is putting this. They go, I got to get a group of 5 team in there, right. And so I'm just
because where's the other one? There's not a single one in there.
Not.
That'd be the.
Yep. It's like that cute. Let's put them at 22.
But I do think that people still are having to remind themselves. Probably same thing with Stanford and Cal. We just don't talk about them, and they don't have anybody talking about them either. So it's like they're sort of there, and then you go, oh yeah, the whole Pac-12. Oh shoot, SMU's in the ACC now, and so I do think there might be some of that, but. I mean, they're going to be, I think, better than expected. I think that the ACC is about to find out that they spare no expense. Now, whether that translates to wins or not, I don't know. But you got Rhett Lashley as your head coach. You got a pretty good young quarterback. Like I think that they could be, pretty fine in that first year in the ACC. But I think with Arizona actually Utah. Utah is your top Big 12 school. We kind of talked about that earlier.
Utah 11, Arizona 15.
So, I mean, that seems about right. I don't think there's anybody in the Big 12 you say, like, they're a top 5 team for sure. You don't have anybody you say that about right now. And even top 10, I think you could, maybe make a case like somebody could be 10 or 9 or something, but you're splitting hairs there. So I think that's probably about right. It's just interesting to see Texas and Oklahoma and consider like that's SEC now. That's officially now SEC ball clubs. But
I can see that now. I'm now to that point where that's what I see when I see their logos.
Yeah,
I'm
still having a hard time having to see Utah and Arizona. Oh, yeah. They're Big 12 now.
How many of those 5 Big 12 teams ranked from 11 to 25 will be ranked at the end of the year? Which one of those 5 is most likely not ranked at the end of the year, or is your answer, no, all 5 will be?
I'm going to say Oklahoma State.
Won't be?
Yeah, won't be.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wet blanket. God, I hope he's not on the chat.
I hope he is.
I know. I like your truth serum. That's good.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean,
I think Arizona might be. No, I keep getting.
No, Arizona's what I'm going to say because they have a new coach. I mean, I get they've got Fafita and company coming back, but even still, it's still a different coach. Like, it's still not Jed Fish. It's Brent Brennan. So, I mean, there's going to be changes there, but I kind of eyed them a little bit. Oklahoma State, man, I don't know. I feel like we just kind of constantly just push them to the side for one reason or another. I could totally see it. Like, Alan Bowman is bad Alan Bowman, and they're not, like, they don't catch breaks and just things don't go their way. But I don't know. I feel like there's a confidence there that they're going to be pretty good this year. So, it's really hard to say. I mean, and I think that's your cluster of teams that are all the favorites. Utah, Arizona, K-State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and I think you could probably poke the fewest holes in K-State and Utah right now, and maybe Kansas. But again, Oklahoma State, they seem to get disrespected a lot, but they're usually right there in the mix and creating some havoc. So Ollie Gordon's back, Alan Bowman's back, receivers are back. Like, there's reasons to believe they'll be pretty good.
They didn't have a lot of slippage in the portal like they had the year before between one year and next when people kind of didn't think they were going to be as good last year.
Well, you know, and the guys that they lost in the portal didn't exactly go everywhere else and tear it up.
And they got some defensive skill people back. Michael Wall, and I see this, that when someone's attached to a network, because I know a lot of people may think that about ESPN and the SEC or whatever, and I understand it's out there, but Dodd is a CBS homer, backer, and never, ever a supporter of any other conferences not tied to CBS. I have tried to tell you all this. His top 10 features nothing but the SEC and the Big Ten. Come on, y'all. Well, Michael, I appreciate it, but, man, those 10 are kind of hard to argue with, and there's probably one or two that may not. Notre Dame's attached to NBC.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then
the
whoever
SEC
else.
is ESPN, and they just left CBS. Yeah. So if anything, if the company wanted to slam him, they'd tell him, like, hey, let's no. Also, I've seen Dennis Dodd at a ton of Big 12 events. That doesn't mean to say that he mostly covers that.
Core,
so I mean,
yes, it is.
Honestly, if it wasn't for the Big 12, I don't know how much we've heard about Dennis Dodd over the last. I mean, I'm saying that respectfully, but honestly, we've talked to him. It's because of the Big 12. Yep. Like, that's pretty much all we solely talked to him about, and realignment as a whole. But so I'll slightly disagree there. I think he covers the Big 12 quite a bit. I also think, you could say Missouri's too high, or maybe. I mean, just pick a team in the top 10. They're not going to be as good as Utah, but I don't think there's anything that's just like super obvious of, no, Arizona should be number 7, or so-and-so is getting disrespected. But to your point, Michael, there is obviously a bias. I just don't necessarily think it's in this particular case with this, post-spring top 25 poll. But you can certainly point to actual ESPN employees and go like, that is straight propaganda.
You can almost feel it. Yep.
That is design propaganda for the SEC, and you can call it and you know it, but I don't necessarily agree in this case, but I know where you're coming from. I'll say that.
Michael also said, okay, Paul, you're going to love this part. How do you not have Florida State in the top 10? How do you have SMU ranked at all? K-State is too high, but surprised they're ranked because it's CBS. Why is Arizona ranked? Texas A&M should not. All right, Michael, I just put up a challenge, not for me and you, but you send me, and I'll give you the information, your top 25, and let's just have fun with it at the end of the year and see where yours are. And I hope you're right.
To answer the first one on FSU, I think they could finish anywhere from 20th, where he's got them right now, to like 3rd. I mean, like, honestly, with what Mike Norvell does and how good a coach he is, but they have a new quarterback, they have new wide receivers, they have a new running back. Offensive line's mostly back. Jared Verse is gone. Braden Fist is gone. The best starting linebackers are gone. Both starting corners are gone. Like,
you mentioned Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, like, the receiver, like, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson gone. I mean, so they've got a lot, like Shaheem Bell gone. So all those are different now. If you look at the way he's ranked all these, and the reason I'll tell you the top 10 is the way it is if you look at, I'm just going to take the first 9, and they all have one thing in common all throughout them. Carson Beck, veteran quarterback. Will Howard, veteran proven quarterback. Now, he may not be the starter, but let's just assume that he is. Dylan Gabriel, veteran proven quarterback. Quinn Ewers, veteran proven quarterback. Jalen Milroe, and those two guys were in the playoff last year. Jackson Dart,
say veteran proven quarterback, but
I mean, both guys are in the playoff last year. Jackson Dart, veteran proven quarterback. Brady Cook, veteran proven quarterback. Drew Aller, veteran proven quarterback. Drew Aller, returning starter. So
who was it for Notre Dame?
Riley Leonard. I said Drew Aller twice. Riley Leonard.
So those are all guys who are proven quarterbacks, and that does make a difference. So there we are. That's why we put it up. It's fun. It's also, we're discussing college football, the games and results and the possibilities, which is also should be almost every day, but it's a breath of fresh air at times during this time of the year.
Yeah. I almost wish you didn't point that out, because it is nice to just do it and not remind yourself of, this is not necessarily normal anymore. But let's go back to normalizing just this being what we do this time of year, rather than, there's the portal and there's all this other messy stuff. That'd be nice.
Let's go one line by just one team out of the 5. And we have to take a break because Sam Conn at 4. In the top 5, which team is most likely to not be there at the end of the year?
Alabama.
Yeah.
From 6 to 10, which team is most likely, and Garrett pop in too, which team is most likely to not end up between 6 in the top 10?
Mizzou.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I need to, actually brush up on probably some of these, but I'd say, I know.
I'm going to say LSU.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, I kind of lean in LSU myself, yeah.
All right. 11, and I don't know all the schedules, and some of these teams are going to be playing schedules that are much more difficult than others. In 11 through 15, I think most people, don't overlook Michigan because they lost a ton, coaching change and everything else. Who would it be 11 through 15? I think most people may say Arizona.
And what are you asking, though? Like,
who's most likely to not be in the top 15 at the end of the year?
So they could be 16.
From from that row. We're going row by row just to kind of change it up instead of everybody.
I'll say Arizona because they haven't put 2 years together in a row.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say Arizona as well, just because there's a lot of just assuming that they're not going to really hit too much of a bump in the road despite the coaching change. And I get it because of your quarterback and your wide receiver and some of what's coming back. But you also lost some guys. You lost some guys to Texas, for example. You lost Johnny Nance there. So they've had some changes that I think could disrupt that a little bit. So I think Arizona as well. Although I do think Clemson's really fascinating because are they just like going to be more of a permanent top 15 team now rather than the top 5 or top 10 that they were? I know Paul's been harping on that for a couple of years now, but it really does feel like, he's still being stubborn about the portal. And I admire him sticking to his guns, but it's also like this is such a different era than what he was succeeding in. And we talk about this with a school like Baylor, who, like, when they won their Big 12, it's like they were set up so perfectly for what college football was at that time. But what happened is in that offseason, college football flipped to something different, and they haven't recovered because it's like that's not what you were setting up for. And so Clemson's playing a different game than they were playing when they were having all this success. So definitely eye them there as well.
Are they still in the top 10 when it comes to recruiting every year?
Pretty much. The thing about Dabo is that, and what I think he's missing is that, okay, so there's not an ACC team above him, but what'll happen at Miami and Florida State is that if one of their starters gets hurt that's like a key player, the guy who's probably going into that game is a redshirt sophomore above, because he's been there a little bit. When one of Dabo's key guys gets hurt, one of his star recruits has to play, and you're a damn good coach, Dabo, but you're not nobody's that good where every true freshman's going to hit and be ready right away. There's where I think he's losing it, is where these other teams can build depth and let their freshmen get out of being freshmen and only play the super studs, as where there's so much attrition and injuries in college football that, you get in the middle of the season and you've lost 2 of your key wide receivers. Well, the other guys might be fast, but they may not be as good at route runners yet.
Is Klubnik the guy quarterback? Because he wasn't all last year was tough, but I think it was for a lot of what they did on offense.
Well, they weren't
I'm
great
not questioning him, but he needs to raise his game.
And they weren't great in the offensive line last year, like they have been in the past. They weren't great at the wide receiver position. So there's a lot of questions about them.
2 more rows. 16 to 20. Who is most likely to not finish inside the top 20 among those 5?
I'll say Washington with a whole new roster.
Yeah, I'll say Washington. Okay. I think that's pretty easy. Jed Fish could work some miracles, but I think, just comparing to the other schools listed there, they're definitely the most likely to drop a little bit.
Garrett?
I would say either Washington or Tennessee. Do you think you make a case for the
one or the other?
Washington.
Okay, and I know we didn't brush up on this. 21 through 25, which of those 5 is most likely to not be ranked at the end of the regular season?
That's tough to say. I really, this one, I think it's they're all about equal in my book, honestly.
I'm going to just say it. I'm going to say A&M.
Okay.
I think that they'll be okay, but I don't think they'll be top 25. I think that the schedule might catch up with them.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. They might be better, but they've got a lot of turnover, and that it doesn't take much for them to be better than they were last year.
Their quarterback's getting rave reviews.
Oh,
it's not just
Connor Wegman's good.
Yeah, I don't think it's just yap.
Yeah, you know who else is good is Grayson McCall, who's at NC State now. Preston Stone at SMU, and Jalen Daniels at Kansas.
Yeah. So Kansas is a whole big. They got a big old if with Jalen Daniels. Now I think their running game will be incredible based on just their style. Jeff Grimes into the coaching staff, and I think just with what he can do to further complement what they've already been doing with Lance Leipold, the wide zone, all that's I think a good partnership. That was a good landing spot for Jeff Grimes, and so they're going to be able to run the football. But man, it sure helped to have Jason Bean last year. I mean, without him,
which is an
we're
example.
talking about a whole different team. So I think that's one
experienced player too.
I think that's one of those where you say there's a lot of if with the Jalen Daniels health factor carrying them there. But, that'd be one that I'd circle, I guess, in that last group.
When we come back, Sam Kahn does a lot of coverage of everything college football, but he had made the rounds around the state of Texas and elsewhere. We'll discuss that with him from theathletic.com, and this is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. Two things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sick'em365.com.
Sam Kahn Jr., theathletic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. He's made his rounds throughout the state of Texas, covers college football, and joins us. Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Sam, in your opinion, of all of the programs, you've been to Houston, I know you were at Baylor, TCU, among others, is there one particular story that really is the one that's the most unique or the one you remember the most? And I know that's asking a lot.
I think the most fascinating one to me is actually right where you guys are, is at Baylor. And I wrote about that on Monday about the situation with Dave Aranda coming back for a 5th year and the experiment. And I know we've all talked about that at length, but it really is fascinating to me because it is the first year of the new Big 12. It's a really important season. This is a program at Baylor that has won at a high level for more than a decade, multiple conference titles, played for another. And I think it's just such a huge pivotal year for them to get back on track. And if you don't, it's not to say that you're going to fall behind, but this is not a time that you want to be behind the 8 ball with everything changing so rapidly in the college football landscape. And Dave, going to be a full-time defensive coordinator essentially, and all the staff changes that he's made and all the different things that are going on there in hopes that it works. To me, of all the programs in the state this year, that one is the most intriguing to me for that reason.
Sam, I thought it was really interesting that you pointed out, not only, obviously Gary Patterson joining is a big story, but you also got in there as far as the folks who assume that he's just going to be the next guy up for Mack Rhoades if this Aranda situation doesn't work out. And I was kind of wondering how, even though it was Aranda's choice to bring him in, and they obviously have a good relationship, you do wonder, and a guy's on a hot seat, and here's this other former head coach, just how that dynamic is going to kind of work. But I feel like Mack Rhoades, put any flickering little flame that might be growing there, he kind of put that to bed, didn't he?
Yeah, it was very interesting because I had the same question that everybody else did, was, is this going to be a situation where if things go sideways, this is the guy that's going to be your next head coach? And I don't think it's going to be the case. And Mack had said that they had to talk through that, but he wanted to make sure Gary Patterson's motives were pure and that he was there to help Dave, not help himself, so to speak. Obviously, Gary, I don't think there's any secret, would like to get back into it. Just talking to people in the industry and other colleagues that I know that have just kind of covered the coaching searches, it was no secret that after his time went up to Texas that he was definitely interested in getting back in. I think he loves football, and I think he still loves the game, and I'm sure there's a bad taste in his mouth about the way it ended at TCU. Certainly had a great career there, but I'm sure there's a chip on his shoulder about wanting to prove himself again, even as the sport has rapidly changed. And I think Mack was very cognizant of that and wanted to make sure that what Gary's going to bring is something that helps Baylor football and that helps Dave Aranda and helps this program elevate. I would be really surprised if things were to go sideways. I would be surprised if Gary Patterson ended up being the next head coach. Even I would be surprised if he would even be the interim head coach. If I had to guess, if we got to that point and they made a change in season, I would guess Jake Spavital would probably fit that bill just because he's been in that role before as a head coach more recently.
Sam, they had to check a lot of boxes in the offseason. It was new offensive coordinator, a new system, new position coaches, new players, Dave Aranda taking a firm hold of the defense and probably calling that. Of all those things, they've checked boxes, but the one that they won't really answer is, are the players they got better than the ones that they're replacing? And that is where they'll probably be on pins and needles, right, until the season starts.
No doubt. Absolutely. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Every change you make in the off season is all well and good. The scheme change and the coaching assignments and the coaching staff and the recruiting strategy, all that stuff is great. Doesn't matter a lick if the players aren't better because they did not look good last year. And there's no way to get around how bad they looked at times. To lose to 5 Big 12 opponents by double digits at an average of 25 points. That's just the ones that were not the one-score games. That's a large margin, and to do it that frequently was alarming. And so that, I think there was a recognition on Dave's part, on Mack's part, that they needed to upgrade the talent. And I think they've done a good job. I start with quarterback. Like DeQuan Finn, I thought was a terrific ad. I think Ashton Hawkins was a terrific ad. I'm really intrigued by Michael Trigg, the Ole Miss transfer tight end. He's a big body who can really run. I think they did an overall good job. I just saw they got Colton Thomason, the offensive lineman from Texas A&M recently. I think he's a talented guy. I don't think he gets to play as much over there, but I think that's an intriguing ad up front. So I think they've done a good job in the portal. But yeah, you just don't know. This is a new offense. There's 6 new position coaches. That's new sets of standards for everybody and getting acclimated and all that stuff. And that's hard on players. I've talked to lots of players who've gone through coaching changes over time, over and over and over. And this, of course, is the Baylor staff that has changed over a lot. I think I counted 17 position coaches that have changed out in the last 5 years. That's a lot of change, and that's difficult to deal with as a player. So it does come down to how do they perform on Saturdays. But I do think that I have to give some credit to Aranda for recognizing, even though I know it sometimes probably gets annoying for the fans that every year something's changing, Dave's not changing just to change. Dave is changing because things aren't working. And I think his ability to recognize that and pivot when necessary is commendable.
Well, we had him, or we were given the opportunity about every other week and one-on-ones. He came in our studio a little bit after they made the decision he was going to come back, or when Mack Rhodes made the decision he was coming back. But he's not doing a lot of interviews. And that's kind of part of the job of a head coach. And that's fine. Last year wasn't easy to get those, to do those interviews. Do you feel like he's tightening it up and going bunker mentality a little bit too much?
No, not at all. Just because I've seen this before at other hot seat situations. This is kind of how it goes sometimes when you get into a hot seat situation. Coaches know that all that matters at the end of the day in keeping their jobs is wins and losses. That's all that's going to matter. If Dave does all the PR and gets fawned over for all his quotes all year, that ain't going to matter a lick if they're 4-8 this year. And so he's going to focus on what he wants to focus on from a football standpoint. And let's be honest, you guys have been around him. He's really thoughtful. He's really intelligent. He's great to talk to. But I think anybody who's been around him would say he's a natural introvert. He doesn't love the PR part of the job. When he was at LSU, they didn't really make coordinators available at LSU. He was able to kind of just lay back and be in the dark room and do his thing. And I think that's his comfort zone more than being the outward face of the program. I found it really interesting. I spotted this last week when they did a YouTube video of the tour of the Fudge Center development this spring, and it wasn't Dave doing the tour, it was Jake Spavital. And I found that really interesting. I said, wow, you got the new offensive coordinator doing the tour of the new facility and this guy's only been on the job for a couple of months, but that's the thing is Jake, that's very natural to him. To Dave, it doesn't seem like it's natural. He's just a different cat, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ultimately, he's not going to be judged on the PR person that he is. He's going to be judged on how good his football team is.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports.
Sam, what are you most curious to see going back to those players that will maybe spark? Is it DeQuan Finn? Is it someone else?
Yeah, I think it's Finn. Just, obviously he did really well in the MAC, MAC Player of the Year. You like the resume, 7,000 passing yards, tons of touchdowns, dual threat. And I don't know, in spring ball, and, I went up there and watched practice. When you're not hitting a quarterback and it's not live, you kind of can't get to see that other element of his game, his ability to kind of make things happen and be that 11th player that the defense has to account for. And I want to see what that looks like in the Big 12. And I want to see what that looks like in Jake Spavital's offense, which anybody who's, followed his career knows that offense is pretty productive. He did a good job at West Virginia. He did a good job at Cal. Obviously, Texas State didn't go as great as a head coach, but I think the offensive scheme part is good. And so I want to see how that comes together. I want to see how good they are up front also. I want to see how good they are at blocking and tackling. Those things. And then, of course, just defensively. With Aranda calling it, I went and looked at the numbers, and he was at LSU. They allowed less than 5 yards of play. I think it was 4.8 or something like that, 4.7 in 4 years there. Last year, Baylor allowed 6.5 yards of play. That's a huge difference. And so with Dave calling it now, are we going to see something? Obviously, you don't have LSU players of the late 2010s, but are we going to see something of that ilk, a much more stingy defense that doesn't really give up as much on the ground or in the end zone?
It seems like it's been kind of quiet around TCU, and obviously it was so loud around them when they made the great run to the national title game that was a little bit overmodulated, and then kind of coming back to earth last year, but still disappointing because I don't think they imagined they were going to take that big of a step back. I haven't heard a lot of noise about them this offseason per se, Sam, but is that a good thing, do you think, just to kind of go behind closed doors and not have that attention?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think that season was a really rude wake-up call for them. In Sonny Dykes, even when I visited him this spring, he admitted that, we probably took for granted that the culture would carry over after everything that happened in 22. So many of those guys were veterans. So many of them were experienced and have played together. And some of the new guys that came in, or maybe even the young guys that didn't play as much who were on the team as returnees, maybe probably too easily assume that they're just going to have another successful season just because they showed up. And maybe that the staff should have done a better job of instilling that culture and making sure that the standards were met on a day-to-day basis in that program. So it seems like, to me, they are laying low a little bit. I look at the schedule and I think it's really intriguing for them. I don't think it's overbearing by any stretch, and they look to me like a team that if they get things right early, they could get off to a hot start. But that's a team that I still, when I watch them work out and I watch them walk around, they still got a lot of talent on that roster. I think it's a matter of, does the personalities fit? Is the discipline there? Are the standards being held and met on a day-to-day basis? If that happens, this can be a good program. But I do think they probably took for granted the success that they had in 22, thinking that, hey, we're still going to be good in 23. I think they thought, and I thought too, they would start 6-0 last year with their schedule. And that Colorado game that we all remember that kind of started the Dion phenomenon, I think that was a wake-up call for them and everybody in that building. And I think I wonder if that was a little bit of a hangover throughout the course of the season for TCU.
Sam, does the Big 12 have, in your opinion, a team, a program that can separate itself this year and into the future, maybe one or two, or are they going to be more like an NFL-type conference or division where it just constantly churns itself from top to bottom?
I tend to think it's going to be the latter, the more NFL style. I just think the separation from 1 to 16 is not really that large when you talk about from a budget standpoint, from the level and rankings that these teams are all recruit at. There's not a lot of separation in that. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see tiers of teams. And so when I think of that top tier, I'm going to think of Utah. I'm going to think of Kansas State, Oklahoma State. And then we're going to find out this year, can Baylor, who has been in that top tier before, can they get back into it? TCU, who would have been in that top tier 2 years ago, can they get back into it? So that's the way I look at it. I don't know if there's going to be one alpha dog in this league. I guess if I had to pick one, if you made me pick one, I'd probably pick Utah just based on Kyle Whittingham's track record of finding talent, developing talent, and putting out consistent winners at Utah. And even that feels hard for me to say because this is a new league for them. This is a new challenge. Everything's different. How is that going to go? I mean, conference changes are not easy. It's not to say that the football is any different, but you get in a comfort zone. You know, Utah's been traveling all this time to Washington and Oregon and a bunch of schools they're not going to travel to anymore. Having some of the schools that they have played in the Pac-12, I think it will be a help. But I just wonder what that adjustment's going to be like. But they're the program that in recent years I think has been that standard bearer, and I think they have the chance to be. And then other ones, like I said, Oklahoma State I think is in that conversation because of what Gundy's accomplished. Kansas State looks like they could be on the way with Chris Kleiman and what they're doing over there, and they've done a good job of recruiting and developing. And like I said, we mentioned Baylor and TCU. They've shown in the past they can do it. Can they do it again and get back into that tier?
What do you feel the mountain is to climb for Arizona State as they come into the league?
I mean, for one, I think it's just talent and youth, and they've got a really young coaching staff. I like the energy with that group. I think they did a good job of putting it together, but I think it really is just a talent standpoint. And they've also got a lot of catch up to do from everything that they've dealt with in the last few years with, you know, after the Herm Edwards era ended and the, you know, penalties that they got from the NCAA from all the stuff that happened in the Herm Edwards era. That's a little bit of a shadow to climb out from. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge for them as well. And to me, that's a program that I think has so much potential, and you wonder how come it hasn't really been realized of late. You know, I mean, I remember in the late 1990s in the Jake Plummer era, them playing in a Rose Bowl. You know, I mean, this is a program that I think does, when you think of the location, the recruiting base that they have from a location standpoint in the state of Arizona, not far from California. They do come reach into Texas. I think there's still potential there. In Dillingham, I like him a lot, but I think talent's the one thing is you got to make up for, and two, I think it's just trying to get that program on solid footing, a solid foundation, which I don't think they've had for a little bit.
Sam, back to the Baylor article, and then thank you again for your time, as always, when we get you, is that one of the things that was, to me, unique and also jumped out at me, because we knew going into West Virginia to end the year, they played pretty well. Hell, they had the lead, and then they gave up the long pass and eventually lost the game, was that Aranda met with Mack Rhoades the day of that game. Because he knew, everyone knew, but he met the day of that game, that morning of the game, and laid it out. And then, of course, in the last drive, I asked him, he was in the studio, did you have your headsets on for that last drive? He said, yes. Did you communicate with your defensive staff? And I believe he said, no, I did not, which was one of the issues. Was that a little bit kind of, wait a minute, you're meeting the day of the game, or was that just him wanting to get proactively ahead of the curve?
I was definitely that caught my eye. That intrigued me when I heard that, because I've never heard that happen. That most of these meetings almost always happen after the season is over. Normally the day after the season or 2 days after the season, whatever works for the AD and the coach. The fact that it happened the morning of the game, and it's a night game. We all, for those who don't know, there's a lot of sitting around in the team hotel on a night game. Night games sometimes are my favorite because of the atmosphere, but sometimes it could be my least favorite because you're waiting around all day for kickoff. And so there was plenty of time to get that done. They did it late that morning. And Mac told me that was Dave's idea. It was Dave's idea to do it before the game. I think it was probably a smart idea because I think he knew that if they didn't win that night, that there was already a bad mood festering around the program in terms of the way that season had gone, and to make that impression before you kick off and show, here's what I'm going to do to make the program over and change everything and get us back on track. I think it was really smart on his part, and obviously it worked. It made a really strong impression on Mac and Javon Overshone and everybody in Baylor leadership, and I think they still believe in him. But it was fascinating to me to hear that. But also, and I think you've heard this, Smoak, from Mac. Mac's a believer in you don't just wait till the end of the season to have your big meeting. Mac and Dave had meetings multiple times throughout the course of the season as the season went sideways to talk frankly about the state of that program. So it wasn't like they hadn't had that conversation already, but it was Dave's formal chance. In some ways, I call it, and I think Mac even said it too, it was almost like a scaled-down version of a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
He came in there with, his presentation and papers and all that stuff, and just like you would when you do a job interview with an AD, you have a bunch of notes and you have stuff that you want to present for what your vision is. This was Dave presenting his vision for what Baylor football would be if it changed under him, if he got another year, and it worked. So I did find that to me was one of the most fascinating parts of that experience. And like I said, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Thank you. I know you have other things to write. I hope you have time to take a little bit of break because Max Olson takes vacation all the time. So just kidding.
I will. I promise. Sometime in June, in July, I will definitely take some time off. But I appreciate it.
We'll see you. Are we going to see you in Vegas?
I don't know. We still got to figure that out. We haven't talked about media day travel yet, but yeah. I would guess so.
Well,
I would guess so.
We're going to try to make sure we're there too. Sam Codd Jr. does a great job covering college football for theathletic.com. We appreciate his time. Around the corner, UNT, North Texas football coach Eric Moriss, Craig's off the radar, and more. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 1943, they opened up their doors, and their team, their customer service, their commitment to you, their customers aren't just one time, they're multiple time. In fact, they're generational, from one generation to the next within a family or a business at management level. Building designs, panel options, building components, trim options, color options, metal buildings and roofing. When it comes to pipe and steel, from structural pipe, culverts, structural steel, purl and tubing beams, and weld plates. Also, welding supplies, farm and ranch supplies, hardware, paint, and tools, and rebar. That's what they have. heavy-duty product, pipe, steel, metal, and more, if you're going to build something, a metal building or something commercial or real estate. Since 1943, just off the loop east of I-35, Loop 340, and also Highway 6, PioneerBoys.com.
It's the season to rev up your drive with Alan Samuels with the new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Your ultimate destination for unbeatable deals and top-notch service. Looking for a reliable ride to conquer these beautiful spring days? Look no further. The powerful trucks and sleek sedans are the perfect SUV. We've got the perfect vehicle to match your style and budget. Over 300 new vehicles to choose from. Now's the time to make your move. Enjoy special discounts, low financing rates, and incredible incentives. But hurry, these offers won't last forever. Alan Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions' expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Eric Moriss, the head coach at the University of North Texas, with us on 365 Sports. Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak, and Coach Moriss on the phone with us. How much of your day now, Eric, and thanks for your time, is trying to come up with NIL money, or however you can say that, rather than actually trying to recruit football players?
Well, too much of it. I think the more we get into this, the further and further away from actually being a football coach I become. And so a lot more meetings. Had a lunch meeting today, actually with a bunch of donors to discuss everything, and then trying to set up a couple events this summer to bring some musicians into town, do some concerts where all the proceeds go to NIL, to our collective. And so Yeah, I mean, this thing has turned into the wild, wild west, and I think trying to keep up with the Joneses is something that is crossing my mind every night when I go to sleep. And it used to be, drawing up cool football plays at night on a little sketch pad by my bedside, and now it's trying to figure out what kind of meetings I can set up to get with some donors.
Yeah, the job has certainly changed, Coach, and I'm sure you guys don't think for the better at all. To that end, if there's talk, and it's going to happen because there's a sponsor of the G5 having its own rankings system where it'll be G5 schools only, and perhaps maybe down the line a G5 only playoff. Would you, as a G5 head coach, be in favor of that?
The ranking system, I think absolutely not. I mean, I think it's already confusing. I think there's all these different polls out there, and I think it separates us further. And I think, there's now with a 12 team playoff, I mean, I think there's a real chance that we get, one, maybe even two teams in that playoff picture. And I think when you have a different poll, I think it kind of separates you, almost kind of like SDS is a separate poll. So I don't like the poll idea. Now when we're talking about maybe playoffs into those seeds, I think there's something I just don't know enough about it and haven't put enough thought into really knowing if that's a good thing. I do know that college football is as popular as ever, and people love watching it played on TV, love watching it live. So like more football is not a bad idea to me, as long as we still get a chance to prove that we can play with the big dogs and get our way into the college football playoff somehow, some way.
Coach, you finished 5-7 in your debut season there in Denton. Had a late stretch. You won your last couple of games, but the stretch right before that kind of doomed you guys from being able to get that 6th win and get into the postseason. But you finished, strong with a couple of wins. Just encapsulating your first year there at North Texas, what did you learn about Denton and the school and just the program and kind of your surroundings, and what excites you about heading into a second season?
Super motivated, mainly by the fact that we had so many close games. And you look up, I mean, we played the 4 best teams in our league, all in consecutive weeks, and every game besides SMU was decided by a 2-minute drive. I think we had 8 games that were decided by 1 score. And so, it to show you how close we actually are to competing at a high level in this conference, with something that gives me a ton of hope. Now we got to learn how to finish. And so, you go back and you look at, losing by 3 to Navy, by 7 to UTSA, had a chance to win it against Tulane there late. Same thing with Memphis. We went on a 2-minute drive to go ahead against Memphis late in the game. So I think we're right there. Now the problem with that is close isn't good in anything but horseshoes and hand grenades, as Coach Leach used to always say.
Yeah.
And so just knowing how close we were, I think we were able to add a bunch of good pieces in the transfer portal during the first window. And so we've been able to revamp our defense. And so, excited, love Denton, and all the surrounding areas right here. I mean, this is a great university that's growing at a rapid pace. I mean, 44,000 undergrad students right now. And so I think that this is a great time to be at this university and to kind of propel this thing to the next level.
How often do you find yourself repeating what Mike Leach said?
Way too many times. And the bad thing is, I have a couple guys that played with me at Texas Tech here in the building now that are working under me, and so we'll leave out a team meeting and they'll tell me right, like, gosh, you sounded just like Mike right there. And so yeah, I mean, he was my biggest mentor. Learned so much from him. Gave me so many different opportunities, not only as a player but as a coach as well. And the one thing that's funny is I find myself from time to time thinking about him and pulling up my phone and pulling up his number and wanting to send him, a crazy text message or something. But, because I really, he would be able to give a bunch of great sound bites of how college football has changed and where it's going and give you some good insight on transfer portal, NIL, all the above. I'd love to have some of those conversations with him late at night, maybe after he'd had a couple of vodkas in him.
Now look, you have that on football. Do you have Mike Leach type ideas about life, like he did?
I'm not near as witty as Mike on my feet. You could sit in a room with him and ask him about some topics, and he start coughing and give you all the and then come up with some of the funniest answers that were newsworthy, and the media loved them, and they could kind of run with them. But as far as fat little girlfriends, all the way to his wedding advice, to the mascot challenges, I mean, I'm not near smart enough to pull up all that stuff, all that wittiness in one conversation.
Coach, you are not even 40 years old yet, still young by coaching standards, but you've been around the game for a very long time. You've learned a lot. How much are you still learning? How much of that goes on in the offseason when you go out to look or see what other programs are doing or try to figure out new ways to do things? Where do you find yourself looking this past offseason, for example?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think always having a growth mindset is something that's valuable in any profession that you choose, and always wanting to find ways to get better. So, luckily my coaching tree is really large, and, to be able to call Lincoln Riley and be able to call Sonny Dykes and be able to, bounce ideas off Dana Holgerson and all these people that I was kind of, that I was molded by and groomed by has been awesome for me. So just finding new ways to practice, to figure out, how people are raising money now. This NIL deal worked for us. We did this event. We're able to raise this amount of money. And so I think always being able to find new ways and better ways to do things is something that's key in life. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky to have a support system around me that I can learn and grow from each and every year.
We've had G.J. Kenny and Jeff Traylor on from the state, and obviously from what is considered G5. But and they've talked about people trying to raid their roster, and also they're trying to find other people. Eric, have you ever thought, or have you, and you don't have to tell me if there is true, but have you ever had to pick up the phone and call another head coach and say, get off my lawn when it comes to them tampering?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a new way for them to do business. And I think, too, I think there's some beauty, and I learned this in Incarnate Word, is there's a bunch of people that aren't taking Texas high school kids right now. And I think this is we have a great administration here. I mean, Jared Mosley is phenomenal to work for. And so just him understanding kind of my thought process and building a roster here, is continuing to take. I mean, we took 26 high school kids. I mean, a lot more than any other program in the state of Texas. Next closest, I think, was 18. Then it dropped off rapidly after that. And so I think, if people are patient and you can build this thing the right way, the problem with that and with where people would argue with me is that, I'm going to recruit them, I'm going to develop them, and then it's going to be hard to retain them once they But I do think once you have relationships with kids, I mean, I did this with Cam Ward, and Cam Ward turned down a bunch of money from the University of Ole Miss to come with me to Washington State. So I think there is a personal level to it too. And I think as this thing kind of settles out in the next 2 to 3 years on the way we're paying players, the way different people are getting the collective, whether it's revenue share or whatever happens, I think hopefully by that time we'll have some stuff in place here as an institution, as the NCAA, where we can have a fighting chance to retain some of these players and build a championship caliber team.
You just mentioned Cam Ward. He's now at Miami. What is Mario Cristobal getting there?
What is he giving, or what is he getting?
What is he getting?
That's a better question.
Yeah, that's a better question.
I know both of those answers. I'm only going to talk about one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I stud with a lot of different with game reps. I think game reps are so important. Like, we've got a couple of Division II transfers that were All-Americans here in this last portal class, and they've been phenomenal for us so far. And so I think people that have played a lot of football, I mean, for 4 straight years, he's been a starting quarterback from FCS level all the way to the Power 5 level. And I think he's seen all the different defenses. I think he's matured a lot as far as his leadership qualities. And so I think it's a young man that's ready to step into a star caliber player for the University of Miami and someone, I don't think he'll be enamored with the U. I don't think he's going to be nervous by having to take over a program like that. I mean, he's a guy I think that has ice in his veins, loves to compete, and will go out there and prove himself.
Coaches, we're kind of going over some big picture things with you as well. Paul mentioned Washington State there because of Cam Ward. You obviously had your time there. What do you think when you see a program like that that's kind of on the outside looking in, so to speak, right now in the college football world? They're fans, obviously, the fans of Oregon State, fans of schools that may be in that situation are all, feeling a type of way about things. But knowing that program as closely as you do, what do you think when you think of them being on the outside, so to speak?
I hate it for them, and two, just, now that TV's kind of taken over everything, obviously they're in a small TV market, but I think, college football kind of made that town, and it was fun to see a town like that that's so small come alive on Friday night of home games and everybody pour in from the west side of the state and have so much pride. And I think they took pride in the fact they were off the beaten trail. They're surrounded by a bunch of farmland, but they were still able to play, these big time opponents and travel down to USC and UCLA and all these teams. So I hate it for them. I think it ruins, a bunch of history that's been built up in college football, and everybody remembers those Wazoo teams and the great quarterbacks that they've had for year after year. And so I hate it for them. There's a bunch of good people there, and for them to have to, be forced almost down a level is going to be tough. But I think all this stuff will come back full circle at some point, and I think as it all evens out, I think that they're going to be in a great place to win a bunch of conference championships, whether that's in the Mountain West or some other conference. I think they'll be able to compete at a high level in the G5 rank for a long, long time.
All right, so Chandler Moriss has been around, very talented. Baylor knows all about him because he shredded them a couple of years ago. Your thoughts about what he brings to the table?
Yeah, just so much experience. A kid I think that's been a winner at every level. Obviously growing up in a football family with his dad as a coach, I think his football IQ is extremely, extremely high. Just had some bad fortunes the last couple of years. Earned the job at TCU 2 straight years, and injuries has caused the seasons to be cut short. But a kid that's hungry, I think, that really wants to go out and prove that he's a guy that can win championships. He did it at obviously the high school level, and then has been able to perform well enough to win jobs at marquee school like TCU. And so, yeah, I think he's a football guy, a football junkie. That's a super competitive guy that knows how to move the football down the field and score touchdowns.
What was spring football like for you guys competitively? What were you aiming to get out of it? And Coach, is spring football harder than ever before because of all of the exterior issues and not knowing, like, hey, the kid I'm coaching right now, who I'm banking on hopefully being a contributor, might not be here in 2 weeks when we wrap up our spring game? Has that changed along with so many other things, the I guess, importance in the way you're able to coach during spring football?
Yeah, I think it was so good for us this year, just for the fact that we were able to kind of flip our roster and we added so many pieces to it. And so I think it's invaluable to get those reps. We probably tackled a little bit more, did a little bit more live situations just to see how these guys would handle some in-game situations. And I think the competition was at an all-time high. I think, a year ago we kind of knew a bunch of who our starters were going to be. And I think this spring, I think that we were able to have guys go out there and prove it and earn it each and every day. And so was really happy with where it was. And then obviously, didn't really have many surprises in the second portal. And so I think, last year we did have some surprises that we lost some guys late and we invested some time and reps into kids. But this year I think it was a lot more, it was better on all those fronts as far as us getting kids in here and getting them valuable reps and being able to retain them and hopefully going into the summer continue to get them some more reps before we get into fall camp and ready to compete in September.
I know you're wanting to get home and you're probably sitting in the driveway, so we'll let you go after this one. But the open offense that opens up the door for the great slot receivers in Texas Tech has cranked them out. You're a part of that. Wes Welker. There's a lot of names. What makes, in your opinion, an elite or productive slot receiver?
I think toughness, number one. I mean, I think if you look at, the lineage of Welker and Amendola, and then we've had a number of them since then, but they were not the fastest, but they were super tough. They were willing to go over the middle, had great savviness of understanding, how defenses work and how to sit in zone coverage, how to win versus man. And so I think overall football IQ is something we give a little bit of leadway on those guys as far as being able to be some fill players at times and run option routes and different things of that nature. And so I think toughness and high football IQ are two things that I would really look for and continue to look for as far as having a guy that really understands how to play the slot receiver position in this offense.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time as always. Eric Moriss, North Texas head football coach, with us on 365 Sports. That's given us a pretty damn good dose of some G5 head coaches and where they are, Jeff Traylor, GJ, and now Eric Moriss.
Still would love to know the piece of information you wouldn't share with us. Just want to know what the...
Well, I imagine it's 7 figures.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fair. Maybe not. I don't want to pretend and do like some do and just throw out these wild-ass projections. But, yeah, I would think Cam Ward, that's probably a fair ballpark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that when they he went down there because they got pictures of him, but he ate at Joe's Stone Crab with Rick Ross.
Yeah. Well, they're rolling out the big hitters. Yeah, I mean, that's a great gift for Miami, and he did a great job with Cam Ward. Obviously, didn't have him last year because he was at North Texas, but that was a funny little line. And off air, we'll have to talk to Eric sometime and get more of the stories. But they got beat up by the transfer portal. They lost Jamori Macklin, who's a great receiver. He's going to Kentucky now. Ayo Adeyi, their really good running back, is off to James Madison. Chandler Rogers, their quarterback last year, also off in the transfer portal to to Cal. So, I mean, they lost some of their heavy hitters, but, getting a Chandler Morris in there, that at least helps answer the quarterback question because you lost both Rogers and Stone Earl, who transferred out as well. So, Morris looks like the guy. You got some others that you brought through the transfer portal. They were very active, but they certainly are one of those teams that it's just going to be every year you got to watch, your best players, and they certainly got picked apart a little bit, but it seems like they recovered nicely, and they were knocking on the door of a bowl game with 2 wins at the very end, just fell one shy, but there were a lot of close games, as he pointed out. So it's going to be a different looking team just with all the guys that I mentioned that are no longer on there, but I mean, there's things to like about what they've been able to bring in. So, that's going to be a curious team. And, he's one of those, even though he's been around for a long time, like one of those up-and-coming younger coaches, not under the 40 under 40 type list of a guy, So, very curious to see how he continues to guide that program and what they're able to do this year. Maybe make a bowl game. I think that'd be a big deal.
Pretty good to have a couple of the FBS football coaches on with us today. Gus Malzahn, now Eric Moriss. I mentioned Sonny Dykes will be with us next week, among others that will be joining. Boise State AD Jeremiah Dickey will join us tomorrow early on in the show and help clarify what Coach Danielson said. I saw some back and forth on that, and then Kim watched the press conference, and I saw some of the quotes, and then some guy came back on who had the quotes and took them down, but you never take them down when it comes to social media, about that they're not going to allow the NIL from perspective of bringing a player in, but if players can get an NIL on campus as freshmen, they're allowed to go ahead and do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's just not making any guarantees. He's not saying hey, you come here, you get $100,000 as a freshman or whatever, but if you want to go out on your own and the first bank of Boise wants to give you whatever, then you're totally entitled to that, but they're just not going to work the system for you and give you or promise you anything. And that was straight up bad reporting. And, it happens. Sometimes you misunderstand something. And so I'm going to cut some slack. But when you then have national outlets that then go pick it up without even double checking and they run with it, it's that's shame on you. That's on you too, because you didn't even double check to see if there was any misunderstanding. You just grabbed it and ran with it. And I can understand you trust that the reporter who reported is going to get it right, but that's not how, that's not, you don't just take it at word and then just say that's what it is. And you run with it and portray it as this big news thing, and it's not even correct. So there's been a lot of that going on lately, I feel like, and I think it's just the race to get the first word out there or the attention or whatever it is. But yeah, that was a total example of just a complete misunderstanding in the reporting of what was actually said that turned into like this big thing where Boise's getting like panned, and it's like, they're going to lose all their players. They're not, this and that. And it's like, no, they're actually doing it a really responsible way. It's just that it was put out there differently.
Yeah, what he said is what he said, but at the same time, he continued with it. And you're right. Some people just took part of that specific comment.
Well, yeah, and because the first part of what he says, we're not going to. Our guys aren't eligible to get NIL as freshmen in the program is not legal. So he was getting like, if the period had ended that sentence, right, and then he'd walked off, it'd have been like, sure, we weren't going to get Jeremiah Dickey on Friday if that was the case.
Well, we already had him locked in, so he's on with us. Yeah, I know. But
it's one of those things where it's like, I have to go unring a bell.
Yeah.
But no, he didn't have to unring the. Well, somebody had to unring the bell, and it was just that was
letting it breathe and
part of the paragraph,
everything. Yeah.
Or letting somebody follow up and go, "Oh, coach, I just need some clarification on that." And look, coaches talk like coaches a lot of the time, and he sounded like a coach in the first part of that. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and this is what I want.
It can cut you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Though.
So,
by the way, Craig, the First State Bank of Boise, you mentioned that. Our mission is to meet the financial needs of the market we serve by providing community leadership and quality financial services.
Well, good.
Well, hey, you can sponsor my upcoming segment. That'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
And speaking of which, there is an upcoming segment.
If I was at Boise, I would definitely. If I was a big time player, if I'm Malachi Nelson right now, I'm going to push potatoes. Like somebody's going to give me a potato NIL deal.
Potatoes? What would
Idaho
the actual
potatoes, right?
Yeah, I don't
Idaho
know.
potatoes.
That's the name of a company, the Idaho potatoes, and they're damn delicious. I love them.
You're right that there was like part of what you could take part of his word, but if I stopped watching Game of Thrones in like season 3, I'd still think it's the greatest show of all time.
Yeah.
But there were more seasons after that. That's not where it finished, and so his comments weren't finished. And his comments, I think, when he clarified them, that obviously helped. But I think if you listen to the whole interview, they were very much not what was portrayed.
Like Brian Kelly.
It's exactly like it was all in just how you wanted to hear it. Yeah.
The day of.
You know who nailed it in an interview the other day yesterday was Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze said, we're not going to do bidding wars.
Right.
That's the terminology, guys. Learn that from Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
The number one best-known variety of potato in Idaho is the russet Burbank.
Okay, there you go.
I was right about it, the russet potato. All right. Named after scientist Luther Burbank. We're learning before your very own eyes and ears today. Coming up, by the way, we appreciate all of you, whether you're ever a part of either the text or the chat room, you might be driving, you could be on the app, Stickum 365 app, watching us here on YouTube, 365 Sports. We appreciate you. Hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind, if you haven't already. Thank you for your time. We're not done. Craig and Off the Radar is next.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on in the Central Texas area, the Waco area, for whatever you're looking to get done with your vehicle, whether it's getting something fixed up like some body work or an oil change, or whether you're looking to get into a pre-owned vehicle, or if you're looking to get into a brand new vehicle, they can hook you up with all of those different options and much more. Those are just some of the offerings over at Richard Carr right now. And we got summertime upon us. It definitely feels like summer. The humidity, guys, already just, insanity, and it's not even mid-May just yet, but that definitely makes you feel like the summer is here. It's getting close, and you're probably planning those family trips if you haven't already, and if you're looking to get across the country or go visit the grandparents or the in-laws or whoever it may be, and you need space for a big crew, you need a Buick Enclave. The Buick Enclave offers a quiet drive loaded with space-age technology, and Buick also delivers uncommon luxury at a common price. So come experience a Buick test drive today, and you can save thousands on a new Buick Envision. You can also save thousands on a new Buick Enclave. Check out the whole lineup. See what's best for you and yours as you look to get your plans ready, or scrap the summer plans. You're just wanting a family vehicle or just a nice, comfortable vehicle for yourself that you can have the peace of mind of driving with all of the latest technology. The Buicks have that for you. And if you're military or first responder, you can save an additional $500 on already the thousands in savings they have for you at Richard Carr. They also have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks available as well if you're looking to get into something a little older, a little more worn in already, but they're still in tip-top shape. They go through a quality process. They're highly inspected, and 100% credit approval on the financing side of things is always Richard Carr's goal. They say yes when others say no, so check out the lot full of used cars and trucks in addition to all of their new models as well. For 25 years in Central Texas, they've been the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. If you've never been a part of this segment before, we just do this a couple days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Take a look at just some various other stories that are out there in the news place, in the news market, sports-wise, that we might not otherwise ever get around to. And some of it may be college football related. It just kind of depends on what headlines are out there over the course of the week. But there's a few things to get to, and can start off with the fact that there's a good bit of news coming out of the NBA, but I'll give at least the NFL the first start here, as the Cowboys had Zay Jones visiting, Paul, and I was just curious because I know are we gonna have Mickey?
Not today.
Not today.
Yeah, we'll when do they start? Next week they start having
they're
workouts at Frisco.
They're arriving now, like the guys are arriving, but yeah.
Yes, but I was just I didn't know we were going to talk to him, and this is not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. It's not like it's the number one wide receiver story, but I do enjoy getting Paul's thoughts on the Cowboys' comings and goings. And so Zay Jones visiting the Cowboys, although they did not sign him, and now apparently he's going to be visiting the Chiefs, if I read everything correctly. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys also, I guess in light of that visit, released Martavis Bryant, which is absolutely like you don't even bat your eyes at that because the Dallas career was nothing to.
He was in the practice squad the whole time.
Yeah, it was nothing to even write about. But I don't know. Does Zay Jones do anything for you as they're trying to build out this team?
Whatever. I mean, sure, he's probably better than he gives them an option, but like I feel the same way about that as I do about Royce Freeman. Okay, fine.
Bodies for training camp.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. If it works out, it works out. It's low risk. I mean, I'd rather see them. And again, they're probably not going to trade draft capital, but Zay Jones wouldn't intrigue me so much as somebody like Traylon Burks, who clearly is getting wasn't drafted by this group of coaches and GM and all that at Tennessee. And they have DeAndre Hopkins now. They have Calvin Ridley. They drafted some wide receivers. Traylon Burks, who the Cowboys had a bit of a draft crush on a couple years ago. To me, I'd kick the tires on, can I throw a 5th-round pick their way to get him? He's more interesting to me than, say, a Zay Jones, but whatever. I have the lowest of expectations for the Cowboys this year.
Oh, no.
Really?
As far as
at that point, huh?
You will get all lathered up.
No. Smokey, I don't get excited. I will not. I'll enjoy a game, and I'll enjoy the individual moment of that game. But the minute it's over, the only time I'm going to be truly happy about the Cowboys doing something is when I hear these words from whoever's doing the game. Your NFC champion, Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's the next time I'll be happy. After that, I'm just going to be this guy.
It really is amazing. We joke about it somewhat because 3/4 of this room are not Cowboys fans, but I think we have a healthy respect for the Cowboys. We don't sit there and bash them incessantly for no reason at all. But it is amazing to me as a kid growing up in the 90s that we are sitting here 30 years later, 20-something years later, and not a thing has changed as far as their NFC title appearances or their Super Bowl appearances, which obviously one goes hand in hand with the other. But that's just every year it's another year, and we get farther and farther away from that, and it's just kind of crazy. So, as a Washington Redskins fan, and I know they're called something different, but the Commanders, but growing up a Redskins fan and now a Commanders fan, I'm just used to being disappointed. So, I don't even get my hopes up at this point. If they're great, then it'll surprise me, or it lives up to expectations. That's nice, but I feel like Paul, just every year, it's there's this immense pressure for them to
All right, what will be
reach
worse?
The promised land,
Could it get any worse if Washington somehow wins it before they do?
That would be the nuclear option of all this.
They have a new owner who's trying to reestablish the excitement about the Washington team, which he may have to change the name again in D.C. and get a stadium built and all these things. He's got to fix the plumbing in the current stadium. All these things he's got to do. He's got to get people excited about it. They've got the Heisman Trophy winner coming in at quarterback, which hasn't happened for them since, RG3. Yep. And I can tell you, I know exactly how the Cowboys would react because I listened to Jerry Jones. I was standing a foot away from him after RG3 rolled in there in Thanksgiving and shoved it up their ass. Yep. And they were like, oh, we just got rid of Donovan McNabb and now we have to deal with this.
For the next 10 years?
That didn't happen, but in that moment, it certainly felt like it was about to, that you have this rookie quarterback who had this dynamic game that you couldn't stop. And that would lead some frustration.
Well, Zay Jones will cure all this. That's what we're getting at. So he visited the Cowboys. He's going to go visit the Chiefs. That's one of those things back in the day that probably would have been a bit of a no-brainer for you, but now it's Patrick Mahomes or Dak Prescott. Patrick Mahomes or Dak Prescott. We'll see what his options are, but just wanted to get into some Cowboys talk a little bit there, especially since we don't have Mickey. Meanwhile, Shea Langeliers, former Baylor star, baseball player, has been with the Oakland A's organization.
Man, he's a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. He's originally with the Braves, now with the Oakland A's. Last month, playing against the Texas Rangers, had a 3-home run game, which was a big deal. But then yesterday, the A's and the Rangers playing in a doubleheader. And it's just something about playing Texas. 8 RBI in the course of those 2 games, including 5 in the first game for Shea Langeliers. He's just 26 years old, but now has broken Reggie Jackson's franchise record for most RBI during a doubleheader. So those 8 RBI
past Reggie Jackson's 7 RBI that was previously the Oakland A's doubleheader record. They lost in the second game. But Shea Langeliers, if he could just play Texas all the time, he'd be borderline like Hall of Famer here pretty soon. But just good to see him having success, and even if it's at the expense of my own team, good for him. And hey, there's got to be something to be happy about in Oakland right now.
And he came up in a critical moment last night. The Rangers won 12-11 as they were on life support. You think about all the great names that have played with the A's. Reggie Jackson, as good as any of them. But the Bombers with Canseco and McGuire, among some others, 7 RBI in a doubleheader. You would have thought 8. No, I'm talking about Jackson.
Record, yeah.
You would have thought there would have been some, at all these years they've played when they were winning world title teams, that there would have been somebody that just went nuts and had 9 or 10. But I don't even know what the record might be.
Well, last year was his first full season in the majors.
Yeah.
And yes, again, Craig, if he plays the Rangers all the time, he'll be great. He's 209, with a 260 on base percentage. He's got 9 homers. He has ticked up this year, and he's certainly a threat. And hitting 210 is not apparently as bad as it used to be, I guess. I don't know. But
I guess it depends on what your OPS and your slugging and all that
all
is,
those things. But he could get better. But man, if he can just take that confidence he's got against the Rangers and switch it over, that would be great.
Yeah, I just want to highlight him when we can, because like you said, there's not necessarily a lot of other times, but we enjoyed watching him when he was around here a few years ago. Again, started off with the Braves, most recently with the A's, and having some success against the Rangers. And for what it's worth, 8 RBIs in a doubleheader. Where's that stand all time? The record is 11. 11 RBIs, which is held by a lot of dudes from pre-World War II. When they probably played a lot more doubleheaders, now that I think about it. I don't know if that's for certain, but a lot of the records, Earl Averill in 1930, Boog Powell in 66. So there's
Boog Powell, the Orioles.
Yeah, Jim Tabor in 1939. And then you had a couple, Nate Colbert in the 70s and Mark
That's
Whitten.
the one I remember, the Colbert with the Padres.
You do remember that?
Yep,
in 1972.
Yep, I do.
What was that? Was that 13? Oh, the National League record's 13. Okay. National League record's 13, but the AL record's 11. I read that wrong. So, yeah, he was still quite a bit of ways, but, man, what a day. 13 RBI in a doubleheader. That must have been something to witness. But
remember Mark Whitten with the Cardinals? He had 13 with
hard-hitting Mark Whitten.
Yeah, I remember that Nate Colbert thing. That's back in my heyday.
I believe Mark Whitten was
reading every box.
That was Glen Allen Hill.
Yeah.
Mark Whitten had 4 home runs in a game one time. That might have been the 13 RBI day. And Glen Allen Hill, I think, was the last one. Either him or Mark Whitten was the last one. Hit 4 before whoever was the last
Glen
person.
Allen Hill, there's a throwback name I haven't heard in probably 25 years, legitimately. But baseball cards, it's a name that I remember fondly. Meanwhile, another nose, Garrett probably excited about this, Paul Skeens.
Yeah.
Known by some as the stud LSU star pitcher, national champion, known by some as Major League Baseball's top pitching prospect, known by some as the number 3 overall prospect in MLB right now, known by some as Libby Dunn's boyfriend, probably for most of the teenagers. That's what he's probably best known as. But after a very short stint in the minors, he is already going to be making his Major League debut. So he's going to be facing the Chicago Cubs on Saturday as the Pirates take on the Cubbies. He was the number 1 pick in the 2023 entry draft, and he's been dominant in his minor league stints through 7 starts, AAA Indianapolis this year, a .99 ERA, 45 strikeouts, 8 walks, .915 whip, and so he's got the goods. You saw that if you watched him at LSU, but that has not stopped as he's made his way very quickly up the minor league ladder, and so he is going to be making his MLB debut. And this is probably the most buzz. I saw this comparison. Probably the most buzz for a rookie pitching prospect since, who would you say? It's probably not a fair question to ask because this is going over long. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. Since Steven Strasburg, that's what a lot of people are comparing it to,
absolutely,
because of just the amount of hype around him. So that's coming up on Saturday. If you just want something kind of unique, check out Paul Skeens making his debut against the Chicago Cubs.
By the way, on Saturday, another thing is that LSU's gymnastics season will wrap up before the game. Might even
I thought they already won the national title.
Well, like there's,
I have no idea.
The team, but there's like individuals.
Stuff.
There's like individuals.
Yeah,
so
okay.
like,
all right.
so yeah, like the
Paul
last.
follows Liddy Dunn is what he's saying.
Yeah. No, I read this when I read about Paul Skeens, because there was a lot of people going, well, why isn't he, like, he didn't pitch this week at all in preparation for this? Why didn't they just call him up and let him pitch, this game? And I think the Pirates are being a little shrewd here, because I think there's a very good non-zero chance that Livy Dunn is there for his major league debut.
That would make it storybook. That would definitely be the social media thing to have happen. That would get the most eyeballs for sure. But
I'm sure their social media director is on top of it,
double checking flight times and trying to arrange the entire thing. But yeah, that adds something to it for probably a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't care because of her popularity and everything. But Paul Skeens, top pitching prospect, debuting on Saturday. Meanwhile, just a couple more notes here, and this is certainly off the radar, but the Utah NHL team has released its list of mascot options. I always like this. I was big on the uniforms last week, and I'm going to try to incorporate that because that's truly off the radar stuff. Like, that's a niche thing. We talked about West Virginia and Iowa State's new uniforms at length, but I also like when there's, mascots or things like that. So the Smith Entertainment Group, which is now the owners of the new Utah NHL franchise, which was?
Say that again.
Arizona Coyotes.
Yes.
Okay, yep.
Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, Phoenix Coyotes. It was Arizona to where it started off as Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are now the Utah fill in the blank, and so there's been a survey, a list. Are you listening to me over here?
I'm looking at it. I'm just, yeah.
There's been a survey.
What do you mean I'm looking at you?
Okay. There's been a list of nicknames released, and there's 20 of them. But you can go on a website right now and vote on the 4 that you want to be your picks for the Utah mascot. And they've got it up on the website, and they've got it up. You can find it pretty easily on Twitter as well to go vote on the new Utah NHL mascot. But it will not be Coyotes because I don't think they own the trademarks to that. And what's already been released as well is that it's Utah. It's not going to be Salt Lake. It's not going to be Salt Lake City. It's going to be Utah. So there's a lot of names. I'm just going to run through them. Stop me if you hear one that you actually like. The Utah Blast, Powder, Mammoth, Mountaineers. No go. That's West Virginia. I'm sorry. It makes sense, but that's West Virginia to me. Okay. Black Diamonds.
I like that one.
I like that one too. And you know what? There's plenty of colors in the NHL. You got the Red Wings, the Blue Jackets. Right. There's another one I'm missing. Golden Knights. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that already, and that's obviously a skiing reference. The mountains, Utah, that all is makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one because of the mountains. Yep, and the slopes. Yep.
So Utah Black Diamonds is one that I liked as well. Swarm. Mm-mm. Yeti.
Yes.
I like that one.
You like Yeti.
I
wonder who their sponsor could be.
I like that one.
I like it. The Utah Yeti.
Yes.
Is Yeti singular?
Yeah.
Or is that plural?
It's plural.
Yeah, and I like that one. Yeah. Okay, I like it.
Utah Yeti is one of those. Caribou.
There's not any caribou in.
Was an Elton John album named was Caribou.
Frost, Venom, Squall, Outlaws. Which I saw quite a few people that liked that one. I like that name. I like that name.
The last one was the one you liked?
Outlaws. Okay. I like that name. I used to. That's why I asked if you were listening because of that there. But I got you. But the Las Vegas Outlaws of the XFL.
Yeah.
I liked that originally, but now I kind of feel like it just sort of doesn't feel as cool as it did 10, 15 years ago.
I don't think Outlaws, but I think Utah.
Right, and there's also that.
That's where I'm at.
There's also that as well. Hive, Freeze, Fury. HC, which would stand for Hockey Club, which I don't like that. I know that there's like this soccer influence over everything. It feels like nowadays, at least with particular parts of sports. But Washington did the Washington football team, and I actually liked that better than Commanders. I would still prefer that.
I T-shirt and I work out in it, and I like that name. But I always got used to it.
Would rather have a mascot if at all possible. And HC, I think you're trying too hard to make it kind of cool. So I'm passing that one. Final 4, Glaciers, Canyons, Blizzard, Ice. Those are the options for the new Utah hockey team. I like a lot
of them because there's not S's at the end of a lot of them. You have so many like S's, the plural. there's like 8 or 9 names I would be acceptable with. Black Diamonds is one with an S, but I like the one Yeti. That's just unique.
Yeah, I think Utah Yeti rolls off the tongue. That's pretty cool, and it is unique, like you said.
And think about the mascot. Like, you could have so much fun with that.
Yeah, you could.
You could put them in a toaster, and no, I'm wrong.
No.
Put it in a toaster.
Melt it.
Pop-Tarts bowl.
Oh, okay. Black Diamonds, I think, is the one that I liked quite a bit as well. So there you go. There's some. You can go vote on that if you want to right now over on the Utah NHL page, and you can find the links over there.
And congratulations to the ownership group who owns the Jazz for deciding to change a name when they should have with the Utah Jazz. Because they got them from New Orleans, the birthplace of jazz, and they went, good enough.
Yeah, that always...
We'll put mountains in the Z's. People won't know what it really means.
And so now New Orleans is the Pelicans as a result of that. So, New Orleans Jazz would have been a lot better. I don't know what the conversation was like when Utah got the Jazz initially, but, that doesn't exactly fit, although it's what we know as it is now. Speaking of the NBA, the Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Frank Vogel after the Suns and their super team fell to the Minnesota Timberwolves rather easily in the first round of the NBA playoffs. So he is out as the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. So you got a group of very interesting players that are a part of that. Devin Booker, obviously, and you had Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. So they will be looking for a new head coach. Meanwhile, Patrick Beverley of the Bucks, it's been announced he will miss the first 4 games of next season for his incident, which we didn't even talk about. But did you guys see the whole ball-throwing incident from last week?
Yeah.
And the way he tried to he immediately went the route of like, well, I'm not going to tell you what was said that set me off because I'm making it up probably. But he indicated that there was more to it, which I just find to be complete BS. If there was, dude, say it. There was, say it, and there's enough cameras and microphones around that if there was, then I'm sure that somebody captured that. But that was a temper tantrum and a bad look, and so the NBA has suspended him 4 games.
He's an antagonist, and he, I guess, is like that for real, too.
He should, 4 games. It's probably 3 for that and then 1 for his behavior towards that ESPN reporter, which he apologized for. I get it, but, that was...
Why did no other reporter in that... I know the setting. I understand it. Why didn't another reporter go, man, screw you, and walk away? Wouldn't that, I would have, I think in that moment they had a right to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might have been a bunch of 20-year-old kids that are intimidated and don't know any better, or they're not in that spot where they felt comfortable doing that. I mean, it's easy to say from the outside, but it was definitely punk behavior. 4 games is what he'll end up with. Meanwhile, big baby Glen Davis, sentenced to 40 months in prison for his involvement in a healthcare fraud scheme, one of 20 people who filed false reimbursement claims to the NBA's health and welfare benefit plan. There were other former NBA stars, as I mentioned there, as a part of that fraud, guys like Terrence Williams and Keon Dooling and Will Bynum. But over $5 million in illicit profits were apparently netted as a part of the scheme. Davis submitted $132,000 worth of claims, which included $30,000 in Beverly Hills dentist work when they were trying to see where the money and everything had gone. So he was convicted of healthcare fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to make false statements, and conspiracy to commit healthcare and wire fraud. And so he had faced up to 20 years. He gets 40 months, and apparently he's taking it well. He took to Instagram and is, not being the sky is falling. I think he accepted it pretty well, and you kind of had to see it coming. I mean, granted all the charges and everything that you've been dealing with, but 40 months for big baby Glen Davis. So that's unfortunate, but there's a few things off the radar.
A packed segment. You didn't even get to the one with Tiger. We'll do that maybe on Tuesday, that he's the only player that's going to be a part of the negotiations. Paul, you sent that when it comes to what they're doing with PIF. When we come back, we'll have Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, Paul's Top 5. Thank you for being a part of the show. We're not done, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com online. Get whatever pizza you want. Build your own pizza, and they have different discount codes for you to use online or when you order. You can go pick it up. They can deliver it to you. There are 5 locations in the Waco area with Hewitt, Woodway, Robinson, Bell Meat, and also China Spring. Bob Mock, the owner of the local restaurants, the fastest growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it.
It's the season to rev up your drive with Alan Samuels with the new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Your ultimate destination for unbeatable deals and top-notch service. Looking for a reliable ride to conquer these beautiful spring days? Look no further. The powerful trucks and sleek sedans are the perfect SUV. We've got the perfect vehicle to match your style and budget. Over 300 new vehicles to choose from. Now's the time to make your move. Enjoy special discounts, low financing rates, and incredible incentives. But hurry, these offers won't last forever. Alan Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Mike Craven, it's TexasFootball.com online. Dave Campbell's Texas Football. He covers a lot, including college football and the tour around the state to talk to different coaches. And Mike Craven joins us now with Paul Craig, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Mike, was there any Power 5 head coach who didn't like the idea of a separate national championship playoff?
You know, I don't know if they necessarily like it as much as they see it coming, and, you know, it's best to get ahead of it. I think when you talk to these coaches, they believe the issue in college football is that for so long, everybody buried their head in the sand, and then all of a sudden, you know, these are the cards that they were dealt. They're trying to be more proactive, I think, and try to think of different scenarios for if a split does happen. So I don't know if if anybody's jumping for joy. But I think that all the coaches are just trying to think through ways to keep college football viable, you know, from the very top to the very bottom.
Mike, I mean, it's going to be a weird thing if they ever did it. It's going to be hard, you know, to get it off the ground, I'm sure. But I mean, when they're trying to talk about creating more excitement and more revenue to try and close the gap a little bit, don't you have to do things like this? Like, even though that, you know, you want to try to prove that you can hang with all the others, they're not going to cut you any breaks.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I don't know how much the G5 has choice in this matter, right? Like, as Mike Bloomgren, the Rice head coach, said in the story, you know, this is up to the SEC and the Big Ten and what they want to do for college football. And if you read the tea leaves, it looks like there's this movement towards separating from the NCAA, right? The final conclusion of this deal is collectively bargained employment with the universities, where NIL comes in-house and they start sharing TV revenue. Well, UTSA, UTEP, Sam Houston, they're going to have a hard time affording 200 new student athletes as employees on minimum wage plus benefits and all that kind of stuff. Alabama can do that. Texas can do that. Baylor can do that. I don't think, you know, Texas State can. And so there's going to have to be something that changes there. You can't have one entity doing this whole thing where they have employees and you have this other entity where they're not, and then you're, playing for the same championship. And so if that is the inevitable conclusion, then what can you do from there? I think as coaches, their answer is let's play for something, right? And in Texas, if you win the 2A state championship, you don't feel less special than the team that won the 6A state championship. And I think coaches are wired to put stakes on things, and they think one of the revenues, one of the ways they can keep the roster together, one of the ways they can keep the fan base engaged is to have something to play for, like a national championship. I don't know if they have a direct route to that right now. Having their own would give that to them.
So, Mike, I know the playoff thing had been out there for a little while, and you were able to talk about that. There was also the topic here recently about, the separate set of rankings, and we've been fortunate just timing-wise to talk to a couple of different coaches like Eric Moriss earlier today, and he seems to be on board with the playoff idea, not so much keen on the rankings, and that was the feedback of a couple of others as well. I don't know how much you were able to get into that, but if you had any sort of a feel for how coaches would feel about even doing the rankings separately.
Yeah, I don't think they're as on board with the ranking thing. I think they get it from a standpoint of if it's UTSA, number 4 UTSA versus number 8 North Texas, maybe that drums up a little extra, TV, viewership and stuff. But I think what they really want is a reason to keep guys on campus, right? Like that's the thing that they're worried about the most. Like, Eric Moriss lost a 3,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, and a 1,000-yard receiver, not to major national championship contending Power 4 programs. And maybe if North Texas wasn't playing for a bowl invite, maybe if they were playing for a national championship, you can convince that quarterback, hey, maybe you don't make as much money, but here you can go win something. Maybe you don't do that with every player. There's still going to be guys that move up and down because of money or playing time or whatever the case may be. But maybe it makes it easier for these G5 coaches to kind of build a culture and some excitement within their locker room and their fan base if there's something tangible to go get. I don't think the top 25 is that. I think it's more of maybe a Final Four with some conference champions. If you don't get into the college football playoff, you get to go do your own Final Four thing and drum up some excitement between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Mike Craven with us, Dave Campbell's Texas football senior writer on the group of 5, but really in college football in general. Mike, when you make these tours, how long do you get a chance to sit down with a head coach, with Eric Moriss or whoever it might be? Is it 20 minutes? Is it an hour? Because I know writing a story is different than if somebody's on live for an interview with what, for example, we do.
Yeah, I tend to get 30 minutes to an hour with all the head coaches. I mean, it's different at each place, right? I mean, there's a couple of head coaches in the state that I've known, for over a decade now. So I don't know if they really give me a time limit on those trips. But for the most part, yeah, some of them are 20 minutes, some of them are 30 minutes, some of them kind of free flowing, depending on what they got going on that day. And, I try to get there on a day where they're not booked and packed. And so we can hang out a little bit more because it's not, getting the magazine stuff, but you can figure out the depth chart. I mean, you can look at the roster and kind of know what's going on. I enjoy talking as much about, what's not in the stories and getting an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. They more openly talk about the other schools and you can start learning some stuff, that way as well. So it's an enjoyable time. It's probably my favorite time of the year, honestly, making that tour. It's a lot of fun.
With you being a proud UTSA alum, how would you describe what Jeff Traylor's meant to that fan base in that school?
Well, more people know where I went to college.
There you go.
Than they used to. People would ask me what UTSA stood for, and now they're like, oh, the Roadrunners. I watched them on TV the other day. And so I went when there wasn't football. And so Jeff Traylor has obviously elevated the football program, but I think having a football program not only has helped the, atmosphere and experience for the students, because there wasn't much tying up to the campus, right? It was more of a commuter school. You didn't have football Saturdays, so there wasn't a whole lot of school spirit. I think now there's more school spirit and there's more recognition of the school. There's more of a spotlight on the school, and that obviously helps with your degree and the kind of the perception of your school.
Mike, who would you say among the G5 coaches are the fans in that place most nervous about losing to the P4 next year?
UTSA and Texas State. I think Jeff Traylor is just one of those guys that is always going to be in on coaching searches because he's won everywhere he's gone, and he's such a good program builder. I mean, UTSA wasn't really anything before Jeff Traylor got there, and now it's, a premier G5 program. And then G.J. Kinney is a star. I mean, he just is. He walks into a Texas State program that had never been to a bowl game, that hadn't won more than 4 games in I think 6 or 7 years. Immediately turns it over, keeps a lot of those guys on campus. I think with the win over Baylor and just when he was at Incarnate Word, they beat Texas State, right? So I think he's somebody with his background as a quarterback in the NFL. His dad was a high school coach, as y'all know. I think he's one of those guys that it's just a matter of when, not if, he kind of breaks in there.
It sure seems like here in a few years, and maybe not that many years, I think we kind of have an idea, but just how fortunate, and you have to give SMU credit because they pushed the issue and made concessions to get into that spot in the ACC. But Mike, do we truly realize, I think, how impactful that may have been for SMU, especially given all the topics we have nowadays?
No, I don't think people quite understand the chess move that SMU did. And I always joke that those rich guys at SMU know what they're doing. They're not dumb, right? You don't get that rich if you can't read the future a little bit or make your own future in a little bit of ways. They saw this division coming, and their thought was, their big money guy there, Bill Mercer. I remember when they had the announcement party that they were going to the ACC. We kind of asked them about the $100 million for going. For the TV revenue. He looked us dead in the eye and he's like, guys, $100 million. We're not going to split $100 million. We can figure that out. Right. And when you have that kind of base where you can make up that money, then being with those helmets, being with the Power Four, being with that group of people is where you want to be as the next horizon happens. Because from what I know, the TV contracts for March Madness and for the college football playoff run out around the same time in 2031. And at that moment, there is going to be a seismic shift in what happens with college athletics. And SMU wanted to be on that side of the dance floor. Sam Houston did the same thing, leaving the FCS, right? People look around and they go, why did Sam Houston leave winning national championships, competing for national championships, to compete for a bowl game? Well, they also see the split coming and they want to be with the second group, right? Not with the third. And so I think a lot of the conference realignment that isn't the Big Ten and the SEC has been to kind of jockey yourself into the best position you can be in for what is inevitably coming down the pike in 2030, 2031.
All right, so I saw that's pinned at the top of your feed about what you did in 2023 with all the various places you went to watch a game, and then you said you're going to write a copy book. When is that out? If it's already out, I apologize, but what are you doing with that?
Yeah, so Texas Monthly is designing it right now. I actually am going to see the proofs of the cover here in a day or two when they get them to me. It'll be out in August. It's 13 chapters. So when Sam Houston moved up, that became 13 FBS teams in the state of Texas. There's 13 weeks in the college football season, or at least there was. And so it was like, hey, I'll go to a different university each week, watch a football game on their home campus, kind of write a book about the history of the programs, the best players, the best coaches, the best seasons. The traditions, what to expect if you go to a game there, best places to eat across town. And so we partner with Texas Monthly. They're going to publish it, and it'll be out, in August. And it'll be, able to be purchased alongside the magazine, hopefully.
What can you? I'm just going to ask right here on the air. Come up here and do an interview with us in the studio and show everybody the book on YouTube.
I think we ought to do that, Mike. I'm not sure when you're going to be back in Waco, whenever that might be. But yeah, we'd like to. We show the book on air, show it on the TV screen, and let people know about it. I think that's a great. And I know what you mean by the coffee book. Man, the coffee table books that I had in the day, and I still have them in boxes. Those are some big deals. So let's do that, okay?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it just felt like Dave Campbell's is kind of a historic reference book for high school and college football. Why not continue that on with the coffee book? And so it was a lot of fun doing the research. And yeah, if y'all will have me on, I will absolutely get down up there for me to Waco and do that. That would be great of y'all. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine senior writer, and his thoughts about the G5 coaches. Also, even getting Sonny Dykes' opinion about it with what's happened. What do you think among us about the G5 separate national championship? I know we discussed this again, but the top 25 to me is just, to me, it's another top 25. But what about What are the pros and cons of doing their own separate national title?
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because there's a top 5 coming up about the pros of it just in a second. So I shouldn't have told you that. But yeah, that's what my top 5 is on today. I think the cons of it are you're capitulating, you're accepting defeat. Yeah. The pros, like, it means that you're just gonna have to roll over and die a little bit. The pros, I think, are I don't know what else you can do to try and close any kind of gap.
Yeah, barring, like I know for, and I don't want to always use a Baylor example, but like, when Mark Hurd passes away, and that was one of their big donors. It's right on, you drive down I-35, you're going to see the Hurd Welcome Center, but she's like dating Bill Gates now. Now, beyond a situation like that, where like you have an alum that like marries like a billionaire that's gonna like that you wish and pray, not likely, but that you would like hope like could somehow just say like here's $50 million for you to like beyond that miracle that is totally unlikely to ever happen. There's nothing you can really do except for win games. That's what I always say. But then winning is so much harder now because as soon as you win, you have some coach in the DMs that night already grabbing your star quarterback and telling him how many zeros more than he's making now. They'll have him make in Auburn, Alabama, or in East Lansing or wherever. And so it used to just be win, man. And with that, the money would flow and the ratings would come in and all of that. I do think with the rankings, it seems like everybody's kind of against that. We've had Jeff Traylor, we've had Eric Moriss, we've had
GJ.
GJ, yeah, I was gonna say Rhett doesn't count anymore. Rhett Lashley doesn't count now, but. Yeah, I'm not as keen on those as when I first heard, because even though they kind of pump it up, as far as like, oh, that's a 5 or a 6, I do think once people look past that and go like 5 and 6 of what? Oh, wait, they're not 5 and 6 in the country. They're the 5 and 6 of this thing. It doesn't maybe become as appealing. Whereas if you see like UTSA's got like 21 next to the name, like they're pretty dang good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that whole system is kind of a racket in and of itself because we know a large majority of the voters don't watch UTSA or watch SMU pre-ACC or
a large portion of the voters, especially in the in both polls, don't watch the teams they're voting on.
Right? Yeah. So
like the ones that they know.
Some of them don't watch freaking Ohio State and Michigan.
And that's going to be the same thing though, as it says the coaches would vote on this. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
Like so I don't know that the rankings really is the long-term play. But the more I think about the playoff, man, I do think I would care a lot more about watching UTSA or any other number of teams that you want to throw out there, Texas State or James Madison or whoever, if it was in that format. I'm not sold. I'm not like I'm ready to like sign in blood. Like this is what I want moving forward. But I am more open to that idea than I was when I originally heard it and felt like it was basically just, killing yourself rather than waiting to be killed almost. Like it's kind of what it felt like. Capitulating is the word that you use. It's probably the best. Like that did bother me initially, but the more I look at it, it's like, I still think you have to fight while you can, but how much can you really fight? It's not in your control.
Well, that's one of the quotes in his article, something similar to that.
There's nothing you can do to stop what's already happening. So the one thing I am constant on is, like, you have to look for different ideas, and this is a different idea, and I think it might be a good idea.
Don't be blindsided. You can't say you're blindsided because it hasn't happened, so be proactive. Josh, and I don't know how to say your last name, and I love it because you're very passionate about Power 5, Group of 5. Mike Craven is poison to FBS college football.
I don't think
he loves covering it. He's not. He's doing his job. We've had GJ, Jeff Traylor, and also Eric Moriss on. He also said Eric Moriss never said he was on board for being relegated.
We didn't say that either. He said he would be more in favor of a playoff than a rankings, though.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. That's what he said.
Just like when we asked
J.J. Kenny. Same thing.
All of them
Jeff
said
Traylor.
They weren't real thrilled with the top 25.
Traylor said that he hadn't even really given it much thought. But it's this. I think you're looking for something that's not really there, to be honest with you.
Also,
I think Josh is a UTSA alum or grad.
And I'll tell you this: you assign way more power to media members than we have.
Nope. Shh, Paul. No. We are as powerful as you think we are.
That's it for the show today.
Again, it's the same thing with, people thinking that Kirk Herbstreit has anything to do with, the powers that be.
Well, I do think that there is, like, when you've got, I will say in that instance, when you've got Nick Saban on during a game broadcast, politicking for like 30 minutes for his team to get into the playoff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's bullshit. I'm sorry, but it is. And that is absolutely being biased.
Yeah.
But that's not happening with UTSA and Mike Craven. And, so there are examples, but that doesn't necessarily mean it trickles down and that every thing is like that, and certainly not the lower that you go. But I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. I disagree on the poison thing, but I don't know where you're coming from with that. And I think
you made a comment real early in the show when I brought up Mike was going to be on the show.
Well, I mean, whatever the issue is there, I don't know. I can't speak on that, but we appreciate his time, and I think it's just interesting to kick the tires and just get people's idea. You are clearly not in favor of any kind of a separation. We're saying that we're like 50-50. Like, we're clearly not like pro rankings as it stands right now based on what we've seen. Neither are the coaches based on what we've heard. But everybody's not like I said a second ago, I'm not ready to like sign a contract in blood here.
Yeah.
It's a fluid thing. So, a few days ago, I didn't like the idea of separating for a playoff. Now, hearing more people talk about it, kind of looking at the lay of the land, like, I understand it. That doesn't necessarily mean I'd vote yes on it today, but I understand it more than I did maybe a week ago.
I don't like the fact that there could be the separation, but I even think that there's going to be that. And if you're Iowa State, K-State, Baylor, whoever, you gotta be thinking about that. This is the best chat of the day, and it's a joke, but Paul, you'll enjoy this, and Craig. Dan, I think it's Meister. I always get it wrong. Top G5 and 25, Liberty, Tulane, Memphis, Boise, and Wake Forest.
Hey, I'm going to tell you.
That's not very nice.
That's the thing, though. Like, you already see all the Big 12, folks scrambling of, like, all this conference. Like, this is one of the things that really bothers me, man. It's like all this conference pride stuff. And the moment your team gets mentioned to go somewhere, you're like, all right, see you later, guys. Like, and that's why I've tried to kind of downplay the whole, like, go Big 12, go Big 12. Like, we cover the Big 12. We want the league to do well. We want schools in the league to do well. But I'm not under any, like, misinterpretation that the moment somebody gets a phone call, like Utah from the Big 10 or something, that they're not out. That's probably a bad example because they don't care. They're already off-put by the whole thing anyways. But K-State or something, West Virginia, like, the moment, like, you're going to be like, see you, Big 12. And so those loyalties, like, are convenient for the time being. But I've already seen the cracks in the armor as far as that whole strength of the alliance goes.
Everybody, look, I think of the movie Jerry Maguire, when he gets fired and he goes and he takes the fish and he's like, who's coming with me? Who's coming with me? That's kind of how everybody else would be like, I'm going to stand up to the SEC. Right. And they're all like, uh-huh.
Well, Renee Zellweger's coming with you, and that's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Kim asked about the schedule for UTSA. We got to do top 5 here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and rattle it off rather than putting it in the chat.
Yeah, let me say one thing first, though, on the Wake Forest thing. That's, I went off about the loyalty thing, but everybody that's not in those two leagues has to be wondering to some extent, if you're unless you're Florida State.
Lock your doors and get security cameras.
Miami still has to wonder. Clemson seems like a pretty safe thing, but even then, like, they're not the slam dunk of Florida State is. So, like, everybody, Wake Forest, Iowa State, if you're not in those two leagues, you still have to kind of wonder, like, what's coming next. You're not entirely safe, and that's what's maddening about the whole thing.
And if you are in those two leagues, but if they go to the next level, even those who feel comfortable because they've always protected you, I'm just saying you never know.
God forbid the academics really don't ever matter anymore, because there's some schools that are getting snipped immediately.
Kennesaw State, this is UTSA, who they're playing a hellacious schedule.
Well, they're new to the...
Yes. So, Kim, Kennesaw State, Texas State, Texas, Houston Christian, East Carolina, now they're getting into the conference, East Carolina, and I know Texas State too, Rice, Florida Atlantic, Tulsa, Memphis, North Texas, Temple, and Army. That's their top 20. That's their schedules. Kim was trying to say, wait a minute, are they going to end up in the top 25? JG, what about Vanderbilt?
That's what I mean about the whole snipping of, if it boiled down to that, like the Wake Forest comment, then I think there's just such an ingrained history with Vanderbilt. They play a different type of role within that league that they're not expected, nor are they supposed to be competing with Alabama in football necessarily. So, like, I do wonder if academics weren't to matter at all anymore, like some people are pushing for, basically. They want the NFL light whatever, which I think is – I don't like that idea. But if that were to ever become the case, then what is the point of some schools? And you could say whoever, but like a Vanderbilt, is the one that I think immediately comes to mind for most people. So I think you feel you're not losing any sleep over it. And I don't know how many Vanderbilt fans are there that care about conference realignment because you probably feel pretty secure. But I think schools that are similar to that, Big 12, ACC, whatever, if you're not like Florida State and North Carolina and beyond that, like maybe Clemson, like I don't think anybody's not sleeping with one eye open right now in terms of what the future could look like. So,
Josh saying Texas State president already said no to a G5 playoff where FBS stopped the nonsense. Every president of the Pac-12 said no to the Pac-12 ever breaking up. Good for the Texas State president. I hope they're right. But at the same time, it kind of comes down to more, unfortunately, than what one president or whatever
If he has 50 more voices that agree with him, then that'll be great. But, that's good to know. I appreciate that. I would imagine everybody's got the same stance. I imagine all those schools are like, no, we want to still be a part of this upper league. And so, I would assume that's going to be the case. But I also think, again, if you just rest on your laurels and think that it's going to be the status quo and you don't prepare for a future that has different options, that you need to take a left real quick, that you've already built that road to take the left on, if you don't build that road and all of a sudden here it comes and you got nowhere to go, it's better to have an off-ramp or an option. And I think that's what they're preparing for. Even if that's not what you want, you still got to prepare for the possibility. And I think they're smart in being proactive and at least looking at what is out there, potentially like a separate playoff.
Vanderbilt was brought up. Katie Rader. Vanderbilt is where all of the private conference documents are locked up.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's there in Nashville, right? Yeah. So you got a nice little hub there.
Here comes Wet Blanket with all of his Oklahoma State stats. We appreciate that.
I mean, Oklahoma State would be a team that, potentially. I've maintained this with the SEC. I think you've got, save for a Vanderbilt, and you could argue, get whittled down like South Carolina. Like they all make sense though. Like geographically, historically, the teams make sense. Even Texas and Oklahoma, like those obviously make. Like why would you not want Texas and Oklahoma? And geographically, they still make sense. So I find it weird when you get the idea of like them spreading out beyond that. I just don't see the need for it. The Big Ten's already done that. They've already gone there. They've already gone C to C basically. But if things were to continue to pile up and you're going 20, 22, 24, then in Oklahoma State you think at least somebody would kick the tires on them. I don't think anything would be guaranteed for anybody really beyond the same ones I keep mentioning, like a Florida State, for example. But, certainly Oklahoma State would be in a conversation depending on what the situation was.
When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5, and this is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. Their 48-foot walk-in humidor, Cohiba, Padron, Rocky Patel, Macanudo, Ashton, and more. CBD products, Vita Dreams for those who want gummies at night before you go to sleep. It helps you fall asleep much more relaxed and maybe quicker, and you don't have to hit that snooze button when it goes off in the morning because you got that extra 30 to 45 minutes or an hour of sleep. They have fresh coffee beans. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and in between Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com.
U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. If you don't know already, I'm Paul Catalina. If you're watching the show live, you know that. If you're watching this separate, you might need an explanation. We're trying to bring you along slowly. But today, top 5 benefits to a G5-only playoff. A lot of talk about their own ranking system, which is going to happen. They've already got a sponsor for it, just haven't announced who that is yet. And talking to Coach G.J. Kenny the other day, like we did on 365 Sports of Texas State, he would be in favor of it. Like, there is some genuine momentum for this, and I'll go through the benefits to it. Number 5, creates new interest in the G5. There might be people out there right now who don't know that App State versus James Madison would be a good game to watch. They may not know because they're too busy following things. There are so many games out there to watch that are better than the ones that might even be on in the power conferences. Look, I'll tell you, I watched the whole Wisconsin versus Iowa game last year. Not great at all. But when I watched, and I know this is an FCS game, the Montana versus Montana State game in the playoffs, I was riveted. Good football is good football no matter where and when it's played and by what conference. So you've had a good game, it's better for TV, and if you start creating these things with new rankings and a potential playoff, then you've got people going, okay, I'm going to follow this along right here. Number 4, new financial opportunities. They're not getting any more money out of the college football playoff. That's not going to happen. They know the deal. The college football playoff knows the deal. There's no benevolence coming from the P4, especially not from the Big 12 and ACC, who really are kind of getting screwed in this as well because the SEC and Big 10 are taking up the most of the money. Nothing is evenly shared. It's never going to be when it comes to the college football playoff, and they're only getting one team in that no matter what. They could have 3 teams that are undefeated from 3 conferences at the end of the year, and only one of those teams is going to make it to the 12-team playoff. No matter what. Liberty, Tulane, Boise State could all wind up the year 13-0. One of those teams is going to get a chance to go to the playoffs, and not all 3. You might as well start to create new financial opportunities. If you create a new playoff, that's where you can close some of the money gap, which is prodigious right now. Grand Canyon prodigious. Pacific Ocean prodigious. Continental Shift prodigious. That's how big it is. I keep going and going because it's not going to get smaller unless you create new opportunities. Number 3, it's a great way to spotlight lesser-known programs. Look, James Madison got game day last year. That was the best shot they had at showing what a great athletic department James Madison has and what a cool game day experience it could be, even though it's not Death Valley or
the big house, or anything like that. There are lots of great stories in college athletics, and this gives you a chance to spotlight those in a way that's never been done before. Instead of getting the crumbs of one college game day a year, you can have people getting excited from all over the country just because you've got good football going. Now, look, are you going to scratch the surface of the others? Not completely. But if you make more money, if you create more interest, it's going to be better for you down the line. Number 2. Could make lesser bowls more interesting. And there are so many of these bowls, as my friend here said, so many bowls, and so many of them don't matter. Well, if we have to integrate the bowl system into the 12-team playoff, which I also think is a terrible idea and is eventually not going to work, but if we have to do that, we can integrate the lesser bowls into the G5 system. I've never once cared about the Bahama Bowl. I've never once cared. I love Popeye's chicken too. And I've never cared. Look at this face. It loves Popeye's chicken. I do not care about the Bahamas Bowl. Don't care at all. It's never once attracted me to anything. And they probably shouldn't do it because it's hard to get people there. Anyway, I've not cared about the Independence Bowl in a long time. And it was a great bowl game for a very long time. If you put a playoff game in there, I'm probably going to care a lot more than I do right now. And I might even realize that I care as much as I do right now until, me, just a dumbass scrolling through there's a playoff game in Shreveport, Louisiana? What the hell? There's nothing else on. Let's watch this. Oh, wow. What do you know? What a great game between Nevada and Memphis. Wonderful. There you go. And number 1, it cuts off the inevitable at the pass. They are going to find a way to push you out, G5. You know they are. This is why you're doing a lot of this. You know it too. You know it like we know it. Everyone knows it. They're trying to push you out. They're trying to push as much money, pull as much money towards them and away from you as they possibly can. They want the country club to be so super exclusive. They don't want to share. They don't want to share. They don't even want to share with people who are technically equal to them because of a decade of success. There's not really that much difference between the SEC and the Big 12 historically, except for the last 15 years of history, where the SEC has done a lot better job of marketing itself and winning than the Big 12 has. But winning is cyclical. History always comes back around. Well, you have no history, according to these people. This is your only chance to start making it where you can separate. They're telling you right now, we don't want you here. Is it right? No. Can you stop it? Probably not. Is there a way out? Yes. And if you do that for one day, you can be Iron Man. You can have that, you can snap your fingers, and you can get some of the focus that you so richly deserve. Kirby Smart doesn't work harder than Spencer Danielson. They work the same amount of hard. But Kirby Smart has a reward at the end of the year that's available to him and his players that would only be available to Spencer Danielson in the most ridiculously Hollywood underdog story ever. Stop letting them do it. Create your own path. G5 playoff and G5 rankings should start as soon as you can figure it out. Absolutely do it. Make the other bowl games better and move on from a relationship that doesn't want you in it, even as terrible as that is. Cut your own path, G5. I'm behind you. I know that means very little, but more people will be excited about this than you realize when you get it going. This has been the Top 5. We're going to wrap it up right now.
All right, Paul, very well done. Josh, the P5 or G5 fan, who's looking at the possibility of a G5 playoff? I've been told the Sun Belt Conference is not even a part of the discussion as far as the talks. And again, it's an early part of a wave of stories, and it's a discussion point.
If you're going to have your own rankings, you're eventually going to talk about your own playoff.
Yeah,
Bottom line.
that's if they do the rankings.
Yeah,
and that's,
they're going to do the rankings. They get a sponsor.
The idea was Derek Dooley. That was it's not like it's not out of nowhere. It was clearly there was an article about it last week. But Derek Dooley, was he the brainchild behind the playoff or the playoff? Okay, or the rankings. Those are the two different ideas that are out there. Yeah.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. TexasBeefHouse.com, the sponsor of the Top 5 every single day. Garrett Ross, thank you, sir. Jack McKenzie, he's covering what, the Big 12 softball tournament?
Today he was off, but tomorrow he'll be covering track.
How dare him. Tomorrow the track and field continues. Hopefully they're going to be able to run a little bit longer because there's terrible weather in the area, so we're going to wrap it up. Garrett, Paul, Craig, thanks to our sponsors. Emery Winter working on 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Thank you so much today. Back again tomorrow. We're back again live at 3. This is 365 Sports, and good night.